Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City of Oxnard Planning Commission for Thursday, November 21, 2024. The meeting will come to order at 6 p.m. The public may view the meeting from home on the city's website, Spectrum Channel 10, Frontier Channel 35, or on the city's YouTube website. To participate in the meeting, the public may provide comments to the Planning Commission via email at planning@oxnard.org no later than 3 p.m. on the day of the meeting, or through the city's website at oxnard.org/city-meetings, or call the Planning Division office. Additionally, those wishing to speak can dial the phone number listed at the bottom of the screen, follow the instructions to access the meeting, and press *9 to raise your hand, indicating your intention to speak on the agenda item being discussed. Madam Secretary, can we please have the roll call?
Chair Arejo.
Present.
Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Present.
Commissioner Lopez.
Here.
Commissioner Connolly. Here. Commissioner Nash.
Present.
Commissioner Zielsdorf.
Present.
Commissioner Schulke.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. We will now move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Schulke, will you kindly lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you, Commissioner Schulke. The next agenda item is C, public comments on items not on the agenda. At this time, a person may address the Planning Commission on matters within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission, including information consent items and any time not appearing on the agenda. The Planning Commission cannot take action on any item presented during public comments that is not on the agenda, and such item may only be referred to the Commission Secretary. Persons wishing to speak on public hearing items should do so at the time of the public hearing. Madam Secretary, are there any public comments for items not on the agenda?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you. And with no items listed for Section D, we'll move on to Section E, ex parte declarations for public hearing items. Please state any ex parte declarations, if any. I'll go across the dais. Commissioner Zielsdorf.
None, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Connolly.
None, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
None, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
None, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash.
None, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Schulke.
None, thank you.
Thank you, and none for myself, and thank you all. The next item on the agenda is Section F, public hearing. Before we proceed, the Chair would like to remind the Commission and members of the public for the regular order of processing a project that comes before the Planning Commission, which have been primarily set through the bylaws of the Commission, ordinances approved by the City Council, and regulations adopted by the state, along with a host of other rules and procedures from every branch and level of government. With a staff presentation on the project having already been made public, staff may provide further analysis, followed by the option of an applicant presentation, and then Commission members could ask both the staff and applicant questions. Following this introductory, summary, and clarifying sections, the Chair will ask for any public comment and then close the public comment after both the staff and applicant have had their chance to respond to the public comment. The Commission will then deliberate based on the information previously submitted, given in this, and then make a decision in accordance with the laws and regulations required of the Planning Commission. This process is to ensure that all parties who wish to are duly recognized and respected for their contribution to the Commission's deliberation process in a fair and judicious manner. The Commission appreciates all submissions so that we have the fullest amount of information to make an informed decision. Moving on, agenda item F1, project name Teal Club Specific Plan, Planning and Zoning Permit, numbers 15610-01, annexation 15620-03, general plan amendment, 15-560-01, pre-zoning, 24-670-02, development agreement, 15-630-01, specific plan, property generally bounded by Doris Avenue, Patterson Road, Teal Club Road, and Ventura Road. A request to adopt the Teal Club specific plan, a specific plan that would specify development for residential, commercial, and park uses on the 149.72 acre Teal Club specific plan area, TCSP area. The TCSP area includes 7 agricultural parcels currently in active agricultural production. 2 of the parcels, 7 acres, are located within the city of Oxnard, and 5 parcels, 142.72 acres, are in the county of Ventura. The requests include certification of the proposed final environmental impact report, EIR, and adoption of the Mitigation Monitoring and Reporting Program, MMRP, which has been prepared pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, filed by Dennis Hardgrave, designated agent, on behalf of Orchard Property Co-owners, Camarillo, California. City Staff Jay Dobrowolski, Planning Supervisor. Per Measure M, a staff presentation has been pre-recorded and the link has been posted to YouTube. Per previously approved standing rules, staff can provide a brief summary of the pre-recorded presentation in addition to other analysis at this time. Mr. Dobrowolski.
Arejo. Thank you, Chair. Staff already has a recorded presentation posted, and so at this time, staff would like to provide you with some supplemental information. Staff has received several questions from the Planning Commission. This presentation should answer those questions and provide some additional information that will shape your decision-making process this evening. Before I begin, I do want to mention there was a typographical error pointed out to us in the EIR. The EIR states that the Oxnard Adult School is approximately 0.2 miles to the southeast of the project site. And that statement is an error. The Oxnard Adult School used to exist when this EIR was published. However, it no longer exists in that location. With that, I do have some slides. Staff received questions regarding the previous iterations of this project, the nearby airport, the agricultural resources, the farmland on which the project is located, as well as the fire protection services that would be impacted by this project, the surrounding bicycle facilities around the project area, as well as the water resources and the project's impact on that, and additionally, local hire practices and adding additional requirements to the specific plan. In a previous iteration, the specific plan was approximately 175 acres. That 175 acre area included 25 acres for school facilities, a park, and within that park, a portion of it may have been reserved for a fire station if needed. When this EIR was recirculated, that was approximately 2015, there were comments received regarding the Oxnard School District's potential use of that site for school facilities. At that time, the EIR was put on hold. The Oxnard School District subsequently approved that site for 25 acres for an elementary school, a middle school, and district office facilities. Thus, the Teal Club specific plan site was reduced by 25 acres. The Oxnard School District did prepare an EIR for their school site, and that was certified. So the project before you this evening is 150 acres, and that includes 2 phases. The project site is located adjacent or across the street from the Oxnard Airport. The project has a 25% lot coverage for aircraft emergencies, and more details in the EIR hazard and land use risk assessment. That report does also point out emergency landing areas, and those are located in the greenbelt to the west of the project site. The future development within the Teal Club specific plan area would have to comply with the Airport Comprehensive Land Use Plan height limits. FAA requirements require that any structures that would penetrate a notice surface require review by the airport. As noted in the staff report, this project was reviewed by the Airport Land Use Commission, and it was found to be consistent with the Airport Comprehensive Land Use Plan. The project site is located primarily on farmland. As such, the project would remove farmland from agricultural production. Currently, there are no agricultural easements available within Ventura County. Thus, an agricultural conservation in lieu fee was proposed as a mitigation measure. City Council subsequently authorized a development agreement to spell out the terms of that fee. That fee would be used for farm worker housing within the city of Oxnard. Thus, rather than purchasing a conservation easement in, say, Northern California or the Central Valley, the funds would be used for farm workers that currently work in the city of Oxnard. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Community Development Director Jeff Pangilli, and he'll talk a little bit about the fire and police protection services.
Good evening, Chair, Commission. Jeff Pangilli, Community Development Director. I wanted to touch on some of these topics for the mitigation measures defined in the development agreement for fire and police services. Some of the considerations are that these are CEQA mitigations, PS1 and 2B specifically, and they're addressed through the development agreement, as I stated. And as a reminder, that this development agreement before you is only applicable to phase 1. So when if and when phase 2 comes through, they're going to have to develop their own mitigations, which may end up in a development agreement arrangement as well at that time. These are proportionate mitigations, meaning they're proportioned based on the size and scale of this project relative to other factors such as the fire area that they're in, and as well as the proportion of phase 1 to the entirety of the specific plan. You'll see a distinction between capital costs and ongoing or operational costs in some of these fees. And there is an awareness by both parties negotiating this, the city and the development team, of the total impact to the CFD of all potential costs, property taxes, school bonds, the infrastructure, and other things that the CFD would be paying for, in addition to these police and fire service costs. Both parties have a desire to keep the CFD at a manageable level that doesn't overburden future residents. Next slide. Oh, thank you. Also in attendance tonight is our fire chief and our chief financial officer. If there's any follow-up questions or any more specifics, I didn't want to get too into the weeds on the math, but I wanted to give you a flavor and let you know that there was considerable deliberation and a lot of assessment and analysis done behind these numbers. Mitigation PS1, the future development clearly increases the demand, higher demand for fire protection services. Wanted to point out that this project site is within the allowable response time and proximity to fire station number 1. So an additional fire station is not necessary to serve this Teal Club specific plan. And this project will pay fees, and the fees we'll discuss in a moment, to offset their proportional cost, both of staffing or operational costs, as well as capital improvement cost specific to the fire department. Item A is the DA fire capital costs. Specifically in the DA, it's termed a fire mitigation payment. And again, reminder, this is for phase 1. These are capital fees used for fire station number 1, remodeling and a fire engine. And the remodeling isn't, paint and carpet. It's a significant remodel to expand their ability to operate and serve this need out of that station. The total cost for both of those components are about $10.4 million. This specific plan phase 1 population represents about 8.5% of the fire district served by station 1. So it's Proportionate share is as shown, about $888,000. There is also fees paid by the developer that are part of our regular development impact fees. One in particular is the growth capital fee. This is paid with each permit. And we can't ignore those fees that will be paid by the developer because a portion of those growth capital fees, a percentage of those through our fee nexus study can be apportioned back to the fire department for capital needs. And so when you deduct those projected fees, and the projection of those fees was a very low number based on 22 rates, those rates increase with inflation, and so they're a bit higher now. And then adding back 10% more of the fire truck cost, even though this phase one area is only 8.5% of the fire area served. The total fire mitigation payment spelled out in the DA is $352,000. That's 50% of that's due upon commencement of grading, and the other 50% due upon the first structure obtaining a certificate of occupancy. So fairly early in the process. And in the italics there, I just pointed out again, there is approximately $674,000 in impact fees paid. The fee is higher than that, but the portion that would be attributed to the fire department's capital cost is that number. And those are based on 2022 rates. Even with those rates, the total capital contribution of this phase one is over $1.03 million. Item B has to do, the DA, again, is where this is stipulated, the fire operating cost, separate than the capital improvement costs. This is called the annual fire services mitigation payment. And again, this is proportioned to phase one. The average cost, for example, per capita, based on our operating budget attributed to the fire department, averages out over the last 3 years of about $215 per capita per year. This agreement used a much higher rate of $300 per capita, proportioning that to the area of phase one versus the total city area. And we also can't ignore the fact that this farmland being converted into a development will have a significant increase in the assessed property tax value. And we can calculate make an assessment of that and calculate what portion of that comes back to the city and what portion of that would feed into both the fire department and police department budgets based on their proportionate share of the public safety budget. So all that's been done, and I've pointed out here initial estimates, and again, fairly conservative, where there's at least for phase one, a $483 million increase in taxable valuation for this phase one of the project. And so with all that being said, the total annual fire services mitigation payment is $462,000 per year. And then similarly for the police department mitigation PS2B, the police services mitigation payment covers 2 officers, and that's stipulated in the mitigation measure. Working with the police department, obtaining those costs, phase one's proportion of those costs. Again, deducting the anticipated property tax revenue increases that can be attributed directly to the police budget, and making similar calculations. Their police mitigation services mitigation payment, is $164,000 per year. And those fire and police service mitigation payments commence with the certificate of occupancy for the 300th market rate unit, and inflationary indexes do apply. That's my piece of this presentation. Again, our fire chief and our chief financial officer are here to answer any other questions on those topics should they come up.
Thank you, Jeff. Planning staff also received questions from the commission regarding the bicycle facilities within the area. The specific plan does call for both Class 1 and Class 2 bicycle facilities. And those are shown on the left side of the screen. There is a Class 1 bike path that runs through the middle of the specific plan area from east to west. And there are Class 2 facilities located along the perimeter of the specific plan area. This is consistent with the City Council adopted Bicycle and Pedestrian Facilities Master Plan, and that's on the right side of the screen, which calls for Class 2 bicycle facilities around the perimeter of the specific plan area. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Tai Chow, our Assistant Community Development Director, to talk about water resources and imported soils for grading the project site, followed by Joe Pearson, the Planning Manager, who will talk about the local hire program.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. This is Tai Chow, Assistant Director and City Engineer for Community Development. Staff received questions about the water resources concerning this specific plan. I'd like to share with you several of the key information about this. The project proponent estimated 255 acre-feet per year for this specific plan. Staff actually estimated 447, using a significantly higher peak factor. You may see in the report that there are some numbers such as 477 and also 389. Those are typos that we'll be looking forward to provide correction to. I'd like to reiterate again, it's 447. The project location for the specific plan also has roughly a total of 500 acre-feet per year of potential allocation that will be transferred to the city should development continue to occur on this project site. I'd like to share that the 2020 Urban Water Management Plan included 2 clubs in the projected land use area. So what that means is that the Urban Water Management Plan already had this project in its vision in terms of the future water demand for the whole entire city. The portions, there were questions about what if there is a drastic reduce in terms of the pumping. Well, if that were to occur, it will be the responsibility of the city as far as the Urban Water Management Plan to address that as a whole, because it's not only going to impact this project site, it impacts the whole entire city. And lastly but not least, the city right now is currently pursuing a recycled water program with the aquifer storage and recharge program. What that means is that the city is going to utilize indirect recycled water for potable, meaning that the whole entire city will benefit from the recycled water program and not just the irrigation system that we're currently doing on the existing system. Staff also received questions about the imported fill material. I'd like to clarify that the imported fill material mentioned in the EIR and the specific plan concerning the 100,000 cubic yards of imported fill, and that is for the sanitary sewer system design to bring up the grades on the project site to allow the gravity system to basically drain to the appropriate location. It has nothing to do with the grading remediation for the project site. And the environmental site assessment report outlined the recommendation for the remedial grading for the existing agricultural land and any associated pesticide that exists on that piece of land. As such, all soils will be tested and verified by the appropriate professional should any fill coming into the project site. So that concludes my clarification for that question. Joe.
Thank you. Chair and Commissioners, we did receive a question regarding the possibility for a project labor agreement. Just in general, a project labor agreement is a collective bargaining agreement that typically requires workers to have membership in certain trade unions. At this time, the city has not taken a policy stance on PLAs. So for this reason, staff does not support a PLO requirement on kind of these individual projects, as it is a kind of citywide discussion that would need to take place. So the city council may consider those in the future. However, while no PLA is included here, the development agreement in Exhibit E does include a local buyer and local hire preference program. So this is to facilitate the hiring of those local contractors, employees, and tradespeople that have a place of business located within the county of Ventura and who have the necessary qualifications for a project like this. So there is that requirement, which does help promote that local hire position. And I will hand it back over to Jay to go through our last slide.
All right, thank you, Ty and Joe. Planning staff also received questions regarding adding requirements to the specific plan. The specific plan as proposed is consistent with the general plan, so possible revisions may require further analysis. Conditions can be added to future development. At this time, development is not proposed. There were questions regarding noticing future home buyers of a dam inundation zone, their proximity to an airport, and proximity to active farmland. When people when new homeowners buy their homes, they would receive CC&Rs, and those would specify the HOA requirements. And lastly, I do want to point out that the Planning Commission this evening will be making recommendations to City Council. City Council is the final decision maker on this project, and as such, all recommendations that we hear this evening will be forwarded to City Council for their decision. With that, I would like to introduce city staff that we have here this evening that can answer any of your questions. We have planning staff, our environmental...
It again. At this time, we'll have the applicant present if they have any presentation. And if so, you have 15 minutes. And you may begin when ready.
Good evening, and I think staff's got the presentation to queue up. We have a PowerPoint to go with this. Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the Planning Commission and public. My name's Dennis Hardgrave. I'm the land planner, private practice land planner representing the Borchard ownership. We prepared the Teal Club specific plan, and we have been involved in Oxnard in the past in that we were the land planners for the Northeast Community Plan a long time ago. And elsewhere in the county, we've done the Village at the Park specific plan and have implemented most of the recent Springville specific plan. And I mention that just because it's a relatively in the same proximity to Camarillo Airport. And so we're used to dealing with airport standards. So with that, I'll launch into a brief presentation, I hope. And I'm available for questions afterwards. First of all, and I think we're in there, yep. We've worked closely with staff on this project. As you've seen in the history, we've been involved for a decade. And there was a pause for several years while the school district went through their process. It was not a pleasant process necessarily, but it was one that they determined they needed to take. And so they acquired the property, and we had to pause and reboot and redo the EIR. We've been at it quite a while. The Borchard family, as you know, most of you may know, has been in this county for well over 100 years. And they are a familiar name, presence both as school teachers, property owners, business owners in the community, and we're very proud of their legacy that they bring and that they have with the property. We do agree with the staff report, the additional comments you've heard tonight. We support the EIR as presented and look forward to discussion and your recommendation tonight. As you can see from this, the site is surrounded on 3 sides by the city of Oxnard, and it's been anticipated in the general plan for well over 20 years. The land use as staff has said is an urban village. It's at the lower end of the density of a urban village range, but it's appropriate for this particular site because of its land coverage that we can do under the airport master plan allowability, and also in respect to the proximity of our single family neighbors to the north primarily. And so with that, we have designed it as an urban village with the concept being that the highest densities are nearest Ventura Road, where transit routes will already exist and will be enhanced so that Gold Coast routes can get people easily everywhere in the West County and also to the multimodal center as well. So that's the design concept. It is all detached single-family housing along the Doris Avenue edge adjacent to the Cabrillo neighborhood. And there is some small amount of commercial along Ventura Road as well, plus a mixed-use component, which we really feel is a great component to add to a neighborhood like this that's so walkable. I live in Village at the Park. I'm used to that walkability. It works out terrific for people. The rest of the project, it has some mixed use, it has apartments, it has condos, all spread through. But as staff stated, the central pedestrian connection runs east-west throughout the project and through the park and onto the west. On page 26 of your specific plan, you'll see all the densities. I won't go into any of that, but it does give you a framework for it. You've probably noticed that the specific plan has a lot of detail about what we intend to, so it gives control to a future development team to make sure that they get the quality that we're looking for in this particular community. We're very excited about the concept of creating a mixed-use area where the new traffic signal would be installed at Ventura Road in Beverly. There would be bus shelters, both northbound and southbound, and there would be, as I'll show you later, a widening of Ventura Road as well. The mixed-use area would have small shop space, and I'll show you a graphic that relates to that, and also public plaza areas. In detail, on the left, you see the public plaza area. And the idea is there to create a performance space for local groups. We find that these get activated by everything from club organizations to whoever. You can do farmers markets, you can do street fairs, and passive, just places to hang out and something like this. You've done a great job in Oxnard by adding those in a lot of your recent developments, and we think continuing that is a real add for both the existing neighborhood and this new community. Outdoor dining is also anticipated in the mixed-use area, so we propose that. This is a recent building that we implemented at Springville, so that's over in Camarillo. That's a mixed-use one. The ground floor is shops and offices, and the upper floor, and in the case of Teal Club, could be a third floor in that mixed use, would be apartments. We prefer to do apartments over mixed use as opposed to for sale units because the potential conflicts are higher when you have ownership residents over. So that's generally how we proceed. We're really excited about the specific plan architecture because we feel it's important to respect and kind of celebrate the historic district neighborhoods by not doing this as a modern project. Almost everything we see now is a very modern look. We like the idea of creating continuity and connection with this walkable neighborhood with how the historic streets are. So you'll see primarily craftsman, Spanish alternatives, and traditional housing types represented in this plan. Phase 1 includes 6.5 acres of park, as you see. The future phases add another 10+ acres to the overall specific plan. There's a linear green belt, as you saw in the plan, that has a Class 1 path on it that connects the mixed use with the central park and continues west. The EIR also includes a reduced intensity alternative. It's important for me to bring this up now because it eliminates the industrial uses on the north side of Teal Club Road. If you notice here that there is not a purple band of light industrial on the north side of Teal Club Road. And the Phase 1 owners and our team believe that this is a preferred alternative because I think it creates a stronger neighborhood without having the intermix of industrial on the backing up to homes right on that same north side of Teal Club Road. But it would instead leave this as an all residential project in those areas. It wouldn't add any more units to the project. In fact, it would have about a 15% reduction in peak hour traffic in both the morning and the evening if you took the industrial out on that side. The EIR also has a Phase 1 only alternative, and in our opinion, that doesn't create a complete community, and we think it also leaves the opportunity to have some of the problematic interface between agricultural and residential uses by having that proximity there, even when we do the ag buffers that the ag commissioner requires for a project. So we've looked at it in that way. So we would be more in support of the reduced intensity as opposed to the Phase 1 only. Staff has talked to you a lot already, and we've talked about the bus shelters and the widened streets. Internally, we show a roundabout where Coronado and Beverly Drive intersect, and that sort of eases traffic and slows people down in the immediate vicinity of the park. It also prioritizes pedestrians. We want to include traffic calming devices throughout the project, chokers and other things that appropriately prioritize towards the pedestrian and the bike rider. I would add, because it's been raised in your comments, that, and we'll look at it in the cross sections, that we would not be opposed to adding Class 1 trails on the interior side of the project on the arterial roads. We think it's appropriate. We have room in the parkways. If you look at this particular view, this is Ventura Road looking north, which would become a 6-lane road matching what it is further north in town, but we would be adding a median as well. So there'd be a landscape median proposed. That's subject to Public Works review and approval. And then on the left side of that would be the new parkway area. And we'd have 30 feet of parkway that instead of a sidewalk, we could do a combined larger path. On the right in this particular view is the existing frontage road that exists in that neighborhood. Again, this view is on Doris Avenue, and it's looking east. So the existing neighborhoods on the north side, on the right-hand side of the view would be our new project. Again, with 30 feet, we could add a Class 1 trail if appropriate. And then looking at Teal Club Road, we could do it, in this case, you're looking west, and there's no impact to any of the existing buildings on that south side of Teal Club Road. All of the widening is coming out of the specific plan property. So we will add a sidewalk and a curb where there's none now on that south side. But in addition, there would be the ability to widen and even include a bike lane on that side. And then finally on Patterson Road, the same thing could happen. That would be part of phase 2. We don't show anything on the school-owned property. That would be subject to hopefully the school district cooperating with any concepts that came up in the design process. Finally, these are a little small probably, but you've got a screen there as well as commissioners. I just wanted to recap the kind of the land use and zoning facts behind this project, because they are significant, because the question's often asked, why are we doing this? Well, first of all, it's located within the city's curb boundary. It is not a SOAR project. It's not in county SOAR or city SOAR. It's located inside the city's sphere of influence. It complies, as staff has said, with the Oxnard Airport Master Plan. It's been reviewed locally and also by Ventura County Transportation Commission, sitting in their role as the Airport Land Use Commission. They've both found it consistent with their plans. It's consistent with the City of Oxnard General Plan land use designations. Staff stated we're making slight adjustments to where things sit, but very minimal. We're just kind of rearranging the pieces a little bit because we feel, and we agree with staff who pointed out to us a couple of years ago, why don't we put this park in the middle of the neighborhood and make it a true neighborhood centerpiece? So that's why the park now shows where it does. Very significantly, it's included in the state-approved 2021 to 2029 housing element. In effect, you've told the state this is part of our development program for the city of Oxnard. We think it makes sense. It's been in the general plan, as we said, for a long time. Requires still city council approval and annexation. Our timeline would be that we would see tract map and development plans come as separate entitlements after this process, with construction realistically 2026 through 2029. Lastly, I'd just like to summarize the project benefits. We are really proud of the local buyer preference program that's in the development agreement. It is a unique tool. We have not seen something quite like this as we've searched through other development agreements or other projects we've done. We see it as being a chance to have first-time buyer ownership opportunities for Oxnard residents. and the program will have to be approved further by the city. And additionally, there's a range of projects, housing sizes. These are not all luxury homes. These are first-time buyer homes. These are condos. These are move-up homes. They are move-down homes as well for certain categories. It does include 15% of the total project units as permanent affordable housing for 55 years. We show it as rental units, and they are in the low and very low income levels per the development agreement. Further, a payment of $2.2 million towards farm worker housing for the city to build, we think is a win-win in terms of that particular category. The local hire preference program is directed both to local employers and to local employees, and there is a robust way that that can be effective, and we are focused on trying to keep the jobs local. It's good for air quality, it's good for the local economy. Beyond that, there's a couple of other things we've talked about already, the Gold Coast Transit Hub, the public plazas, and creating a walkable community. With that, I am glad to answer any questions you may have as the evening goes on. And again, we do prefer, if you so feel appropriate, to look at the reduced intensity alternative, because there is now the anticipated over 300,000 square feet of industrial that could happen south of Teal Club Road, which would help create a job housing balance as well. And with that, I conclude my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And in regards to your offer to answer any questions, that will come either now or after the public comments. So thank you very much. Before we continue with the next part of the hearing for the commission and the public, usually when there are maybe a lot of public commenters, it's usually at the chair's discretion, unless the commission overrides, that we have public comment before the questioning of the commissioners. Given the questions before this meeting, I imagine that it might run into the hour plus in regards to questions, and so in deference to the public and in precedence from previous Chair Chavez for these longer questions, we'd like to allow the option for the public comment to come before, and then they can leave if they wish to. Madam Secretary, how many public comments have been submitted both online and in person today?
Chair, 3 in total have been submitted, and I see them online and 1 in person. 2 online and 1 in person.
Okay, thank you. With that few public comments, I think we'll start then with questions from the commission, and we'll do the regular public comments after the questioning from the commission, unless the commission would like to take a break in the middle, have the public comments in the middle, or have them begin already right now. We'll start with, again, questions from the commission, looking to the commission for questions. Please state if it's for the applicant or for staff, and if there's a particular staff member, try to keep your questions grouped for just that staff member. We don't have a rule on how long you can go. My recommendation is to do max 15 minutes. We'll go through everyone, and we can do another round if needed. So, Commission. I saw Commissioner Schulke first, next by Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. Commissioner Schulke.
I appreciate it. Also want to thank city staff for this thoroughly impressive work that's been done in bringing this proposal forward. I have a pretty simple question. I would just like to have it explained a bit more to me why the proposal in its original iteration would have felt, it appears to have felt that an additional fire station would have been needed. And then today we're sitting here and we've been presented with details that make it clear that that's no longer the recommendation, and in fact other stations have sufficient coverage. So I understand the argument as it stands today. I'll admit I don't fully understand why the change. Why would it have felt, it seems it was felt that would have been helpful or even necessary to have that station in the original iteration, but that's no longer the case. I just want to know what the change in thinking was, please.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. So the previous iteration of the specific plan, as you point out, did include land for a possible fire station if needed. The specific plan didn't specifically require a fire station. It required the developer to pay their proportionate share of costs for fire protection services. At that time, in 2015, a possible fire station could have been built in the Teal Club specific plan area. But given that Fire Station 1 is located not too far away, the fire department reevaluated their needs and determined that an expansion of Fire Station 1 would be more appropriate than the construction of an entirely new station in the Teal Club specific plan area. With that, we do have the fire chief here this evening. He can add to that as well.
Good evening, Commission. And Commissioner, to add a little bit more context to your question is one of the things that we looked at, we did a standards of cover study back in 2017, and really the crux of that across the entire city is, at this point, we don't need more fire stations as much as having the ability to put more resources in existing stations. Having a station so close together, it would just not provide the best return on investment. I guess I would characterize it that way. So we are in the process around the city of working towards adding capacity to our fire stations. And so one of those stations, Station 4, that's currently on Vineyard, will be moving to the top of Ventura Road and will be a significant larger station with the ability to hold more resources. Part of the mitigation included for the Teal Club specific plan is going towards a remodel of Fire Station 1, the nearest station to the development, with a specific aim of being able to add additional resources and having additional personnel reside in that station.
Thank you. I appreciate the answer.
Thank you, Commissioner Schulke. Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Chief, I have some more questions about the fire department. So I guess I do like the idea of moving the station number 4 to the other location, but I'm going to go ahead and ask it anyway. We know that in the city of Oxnard, our equipment is aging out, so we need to do a lot of replacement. One of my questions is that we're going to get another engine, but are we truly getting another engine, or are we just bringing in an engine to kind of try to pick up the load, but we're also going to lose some other equipment on the other end of it?
So as a part of this mitigation, we are looking at, we certainly do need to replace equipment. You're absolutely right, Vice Chair, and we're in the process of doing that right now. We recently received 3 new engines. They're going through the process of getting upfitted, radios programmed, those kinds of things. We also have 2 additional engines and a ladder truck that are due to be delivered over the next 18 months. And so specific to the Teal Club development, we are looking at using those mitigation funds for either a new engine or even an additional response unit, being a paramedic squad. As I'm sure everyone's aware, the majority of the responses we have in this day and age are EMS related or emergency medical responses related, and so that was the other thing that we're looking at. But again, part of our constraint right now is how many people can actually sleep at that station.
Understand. So we're talking about the paramedics. That was my next question, and you've kind of touched on that. Knowing what the actual layout of the streets are going to be, and we said that the response times are within the requirement, but what is going to be the change in response times? Is it it's still in the margin, but is it a drastic drop, or is it a small one as we try to navigate for a heart attack, so to speak?
Yeah, so one of the goals that we have, particularly when it comes to emergency medical responses, is getting an ALS resource or a paramedic resource on scene of the most significant medical calls within 5 minutes. So in our version, it's the Delta or Echo category calls, which is just the way we sort of categorize the severity of the emergency. They're the types of calls that we want to get somebody there quickly. In terms of response times, there isn't really, although Fire Station 1 is the nearest fire station to the development, the reality is we use what's known as closest resource. So if the equipment that's at Fire Station 1 has responded to another call, it would be the next nearest resource. So it's a constantly dynamic, evolving process. But that, getting back to my comment, my previous answer, having more resources will ensure it's more likely to be close, and so we can maintain adequate response times to that area.
All right, thank you so much for that. And then I do have a question, but I don't see anybody from the police department, but I'm going to ask it kind of on the same general concern as we talked about with the fire, and that is, as we put in the structure of the streets in there, and we're talking about response times, and we're only talking about a couple of officers, which, you know, to me doesn't seem like it's going to be enough, because we're going to have all those houses in there, we're going to have streets that need to be patrolled and navigated, and, you know, it kind of reminds me of River Park, where you may need to create another beat, you know, to cover that particular area, and then the beat is another sergeant, some more, you know, corporals, some more patrol officers, and so forth. And so I'm just wondering if that, you know, I know we're still in phase 1, but if that really is, you know, the thought process, is that enough to cover the needs that we truly are going to have? You know, we talked about the housing being more, you know, the apartments and condos being more, you know, can't think of what the term I wanted to use. But nevertheless, you know, in my mind is when you have more apartments and so forth in the area, you probably have a more, you know, likelihood of having more calls and so forth. And we need to have officers that can cover that area. And again, it kind of reminds me of, you know, navigating through River Park. And there's, you know, it's not so much big, but it's just a lot of houses and condos and so forth in there, and getting around from point A to point B and so forth as you're responding to calls. So I'll just put that out there for that. And I think that's what I have for now.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. Commissioner Nash.
Thank you, Chair. So I have a few questions. I guess let's talk to Mr. Hargrave first. A couple of things. Under the landscape, 3.7.7, page 67, the has a list of several items that will be not allowed in front yards. Now, was that your doing, or was that something that was presented to you by staff? It was decorative columns, fountains, statuary, pilasters?
I think it was mutual. I'll tell you, our experience has been this, that we have found in specific plans, particularly in smaller lot configurations like we have here. In other words, we don't have 10,000 square foot lots or 75, 80 foot of street frontage on homes. We've found that in hindsight, specific plans where you allow columns and things like that to be put in by the homeowners, they become obstructions quite often for the public. We prefer kind of a continuity to what's presented. And so we've tended to move away from doing that. And fountains, you know, of scalable fountains, I think you can still leave some of that to an HOA, but what we've seen is kind of I'd call it the overkill of it. Some people will wind up putting 4 pilasters on a 50-foot wide lot, you know, and visually it's not necessarily as uniform as people would like to see within their community.
Okay,
I don't
thank
know
you.
if that helps.
And I have some more for you, but
Sure.
briefly to staff. So my concern is allowing fountain, because that provides a water source for insects and birds. Could that be allowed by the HOA? If it's prohibited in the specific plan, can it be then allowed by the HOA?
Yes, Commissioner Nash, as far as requiring or prohibiting structures within the front yard setback, yes, you can make recommendations to the specific plan. The homeowners association, however, can also have their own rules regarding structures in the front setback. As far as the HOA, though, can't preempt the specific plan. So I'll
So
let our.
that's something that would have to be addressed when we make our motion to approve this.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I'm sorry if I can interject. One of the other things we've run into, when you mentioned the positive of birds and insects is great. The negative are poorly maintained fountains that we've seen both in some of the commercial areas and in residential because of the circular, you can't have it be connected to a regular water flow. You have to fill it, and so we wind up with stagnant fountains, and we have vector problems occasionally with them as well.
And as someone who belongs to an HOA, that becomes an HOA issue.
Correct.
That they would be responsible for the enforcement of the maintenance of the fountains.
Yeah. On fountains, I don't have a strong bias. I'm more concerned about the pilasters and the large statuary that people decide they want to grace their neighbors with.
Okay, and I really appreciate your comments about the Class 1 bicycle paths, because that's long been a bugaboo of mine when we have these large projects, especially on the secondary arterials. Let's have Class 1, let's do it right.
Yeah.
From the get-go. So with your blessing, I would certainly make that recommendation when the time comes, because I think it's so important to include those, because my dream is to have a Class 1 bike path from downtown out to the beach. And so this would certainly be part of that network. So thank you for saying that.
At my age, I ride Class 1 paths almost exclusively now. I have to be honest about it. I'm not trusting anybody on their cell phones.
Especially when you're talking about a secondary arterial or even a primary arterial. I mean, the cars are speeding by at 60 miles an hour or more, and it's just such an issue of safety. Okay. And I just want to raise this issue. Did you give any consideration, because I know that greenhouse gas emissions and air quality was an issue, was a significant impact of this project. Did you give, and I can't give you any figures or whether it would even be meaningful, but did you give any consideration to eliminating natural gas hookups entirely?
This document was actually written before the current Build It Green building codes. And so I don't want to overstate the situation, but everything that I'm being told is that under the upcoming building codes implementation, it is almost impossible to do natural gas in a new residential project, if not this year, within the next 2 years. And so we have several projects that we've represented. We did the Hitch Ranch specific plan in Moore Park 2 years ago. And in anticipation of that, with a builder involved already, they said, let's eliminate it. Now, it may or may not make any difference on how the greenhouse gases were calculated for the CEQA document, and I wouldn't want to recirculate for that. I'm not uncomfortable eliminating natural gas to residential purposes. I think it's only in some commercial. So.
Because if you're able to eliminate the natural gas infrastructure, then you can perhaps provide the homeowners, with some sort of allowance for induction stoves and heat pumps. So if you can save money, perhaps we can also save the homeowner some money.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to that as well, and I don't think the owner who will not be the developer, but the owner does not oppose it either. So,
Okay, well, I just wanted to raise that as a potential issue. Now, because this is airport adjacent, some members of the public are concerned about the safety of airplanes that might be in distress.
right.
Would it make any sense to, when you're working on Teal Club Road, to like eliminate a center median or any obstructions to provide a landing area for planes that can't make it to the airport? I don't know if that, is just crazy talk or what, but it just kind of.
No, for Teal Club Road, it isn't. And in fact, looking at community development and public works, we did not show a median on Teal Club Road. So it does not have a median for multiple reasons, in that there's all of these small lot ownerships, and we didn't want to put people in it's a center turn lane. Even though we have controlled entrances northbound, right, at just defined places, there's probably 20 curb cuts in that first quarter mile where those existing units are. So you would have that full roadway with 2 lanes plus a 14-foot continuous turn lane. So you would have 40 feet at least of width plus a bike lane.
I just wanted to plant that bug in people's ears
Yes.
as a potential safety feature.
Right,
Of
and
this
and the
specific plan.
coverage is also watched closely. We have the same thing at Springville in Camarillo. And while you do see the building mass there, you also, when you go back and look at it, between the parks, the roadways, the common areas, that there is, it does meet the coverage requirements of the Airport Land Use Commission.
Now, if I heard your earlier comments correctly, you would be okay with going with the reduced intensity alternative?
Personally, and the owners don't disagree with that, it honestly doesn't impact their development, other than I think it makes a better community. I mean, to me, there's enough. When we first wrote the specific plan, we were not anticipating that the annexation would include the rezoning and incorporation of all that on the south. And when you see what the EIR states, it may be overstating the amount of industrial development because there are avigation easement impacts on those properties on the south side. I know because we've analyzed a couple of those sites further to the west, but we feel it makes more sense. From our point of view, it makes a stronger residential community if you don't have the back of small one-story tilt-up industrial building 100 feet from you. I think in the specific plan, there's a cross-section that would show you how that works, and it wouldn't be necessarily the best approach as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, we wouldn't be opposed to reducing traffic 15%, because we always hear that concern, even though it's not an EIR concern. We do always hear concern about traffic, particularly peak hour, and the industrial that is within our project generates about 15% of the peak hour traffic in the morning and evening.
And I thank you for that, because this will be discussed certainly further on in this meeting, but traffic and traffic flow will absolutely be a concern of mine, even though technically as part of the EIR,
right,
it's not, but we can't help but talk about the impacts on the local community from increased traffic, especially on Doris and Teal Club Road.
Right.
Assuming people will want to avoid the traffic on Ventura Road. So those are all the questions I have for you, but I do have some questions for staff.
Okay, and I just would point out, if anybody's wondering, page 38 of the specific plan is where the cross-section is. It shows conceptually how the industrial would relate to the residential. And that's also a reason, even though there was if you don't mind me saying, there was a public comment came in, we should be doing a higher density at this project. One of the reasons we don't is because it's proximity to the airport and its context within an existing community. This is not an isolated out in the middle of nowhere project, nor is it adjacent to the freeway where it may be more appropriate to do what is at Wagon Wheel or something. We don't think this is contextually appropriate to this community.
And
thanks.
I do want to thank you, because it's kind of ironic that this is sort of our last specific plan within the city limits at this point. But we're finally doing so many things right
Oh, thank you.
that, I really appreciate progress.
Yeah, we've listened for a long time and worked
Yeah.
closely with staff on it, so.
Well, thank you. For staff, some mention was made of the local buyer preference program. Is that something that the city has in place, or is that something that would have to be implemented by the city council?
So Commissioner Nash, that is something that is currently in the development agreement that is before the council. So it is something that would need to be further discussed, but it is something that is in the agreement. So if it is approved, it is something that would be in place for this project.
Okay, so there's nothing else that the planning commission would need to do in that regard? It's already in the document?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, great. With the, I do have another question or two about the expansion of Fire Station Number 1. So I understand the need to improve the trucks and the equipment. Are you planning to add more personnel at Fire Station Number 1?
Yes, correct, Commissioner.
Okay. And with Fire Station Number 4, you're going to close that current facility once it moves?
We haven't determined the fate of the current fire station that's on Vineyard. We may keep it in for a different capacity, whether that becomes somewhere to house EMS units, where it becomes somewhere to house a day engine and EMS units, or whether it is used completely independent of the fire department and in some other city function. That hasn't been determined yet, but the one thing that we have identified, and this again was a part of our 2017 strategic plan, standards of cover, is that lot is not big enough for the size of station we need to house an engine, a ladder truck, a battalion chief, and potentially a paramedic squad.
I live in that area, so I acknowledge that it's a very awkward location as far as ingress and egress. So that's all. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And that's all, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash. Any others from the commission at this time? Commissioner Zilsdorf.
Yes, I would like to thank the staff. First of all, I would like to thank the staff for, addressing all the questions provided and giving us all informative information. But my question is with the developer, just because I'm curious. So I would like to know why solar wasn't in consideration, because I'm looking at the electricity and it says that it's, with Edison, and I just would like to know why, because we're moving forward to kind of like progress, and I would like to know just why solar wasn't even considered.
Again, this is a specific plan. The document's been out for a while. We could have updated it to include that, but to directly answer your question, the California building codes now require solar on single-family homes and multifamily units as well. So this project will have solar. And all units have to have solar now. So, yeah, more an oversight. One thing that's come up in a couple of agencies lately is when we do carports, for instance, if it's an apartment or even an affordable apartment project, we look to try to see how we can maximize the solar carports as well, and even in some commercial locations. But definitely it will be included, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Commissioner Zilsdorf. Any others from the commission? Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
I'll go ahead and start, and if you wouldn't mind, one more round here. I made just a couple of notes with a couple of the last slides that you went over this evening. One of them, the and just taking the information from the staff report, with the majority of the site mostly farmland that is located within county unincorporated area, how is this not Oxnard SOAR or county SOAR?
Great question. It intentionally, when SOAR was written, SOAR matched the city of Oxnard's sphere of influence line in this case. So that edge is Patterson Road. So those properties north of Teal Club Road and west of Patterson are in SOAR all the way up to the high school.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. Let's see, next question. In the process you all encountered with the annexation, is this a requirement that would help that annexation in any way? Or I'm just wondering why the annexation hasn't happened yet before it coming to us?
Staff could probably address it, but my understanding and my experience has been you cannot go to LAFCO for an annexation without a certified CEQA document. Okay. So we couldn't just request to annex without any approved development project and a CEQA document that verifies that this is a justifiable expansion. Ventura County LAFCO is very strong on not having cities just expand for the heck of it.
Absolutely.
Or private property owners.
And maybe last question before I transfer to staff here. Can you share with us from your perspective what were some of the more notable or significant revisions after the EIR in 2015 to the current form?
Yeah, the most significant was the removal of the 25 acres. We never called it a school site. Okay. We called it a public institutional site. And I will give my version as I remember from being at a city council meeting when the Oxnard K-8 district appeared at the council when we were doing a referral for this to move forward with study. And also when you were doing your 2030 general plan update. I may be the only person in the room who was here other than you. But at the time, the school district appeared and said, we want a school located on this site in the general plan. And the council deferred because my understanding, nothing from anyone else, is that the school district needed to take responsibility for locating a school within the outer flight zones, as opposed to the city would not be the ones to want to take the liability for that, which is why the school district, under threat of eminent domain, acquired the 25 acres from the Borchard family and then proceeded with their own EIR and their approval process as a lead agency.
And just for clarification, that's that piece of land that is not included at the corner of Patterson and Doris?
Correct, the northwest corner of the plan area, but the southeast corner of that intersection, correct. Okay. And that was the biggest change. The second largest change was once that was removed because we then said, let's put the park internally. Your staff strongly recommended that we do that. And we think it's a far better plan than either the 2015 or exceptionally better than the SunCal plan from 2009. So we feel better, we feel like this is the best way to make a walkable, compact neighborhood that people can enjoy.
Great, thank you. Appreciate it. Questions to staff, and these were just 3-4 pages of questions that I had written down in review and preparation. So given that, the project area will be annexed to city utilities, there was mention of the Calegua's municipal water. And so 2 questions. Is that the same, do all Oxnard residents typically get their water from the same source? I know that, or how was it that it was determined that it would be them?
Commissioner Dr. Lopez, the city of Oxnard water service area is basically within the area of Calleguas Water District. So anytime that the city receives an application for water service, they would first need to be annexed within Calles Water District, and then the city will be able to provide them with water.
Okay. And so, okay, thank you. Next question, I think this might have been touched on by the presentation at the start. Given that it sounds like police and fire will be absorbed by existing, aside from the addition of personnel, what would exempt this from like a Melrose situation type of development?
So Commissioner Dr. Lopez, are you just referring to like the financing district that they're going to be doing?
Well, in terms of it having those Melrose fees or not, what is it that?
So this development as a whole includes not only the fire and police fees that will also be paid for through that facilities district, but also some of the public improvements, the park maintenance and those type of things will also be paid through that. So basically this whole development would essentially require having that facilities district in place. In
I
order
see,
to-
so it would be the CFD.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Let's see here. There was a question about the parcel south of Teal Club Road that would be zoned light industrial M1 with existing residential uses remaining as existing non-conforming. Are there any implications for those parcels of land with these restrictions? Meaning it would not be used for, or, I mean, perhaps it's too close to the airport, right? It goes up right onto the airport line there, but it limits it to those.
Yeah, so Commissioner Dr. Lopez, so the intent is to rezone those to M1, which is consistent with the other properties which are currently within the city in that location. Typically, yes, residential that close to the airport is not a permitted use, so they're allowed to continue as legal non-conforming structures, but really the plan would be to have that be more industrial, which is more compatible with having an airport right next door.
Okay, let's see. Clarification of we talked about phase 1, phase 2. So is phase 1, just for clarification, that's the one that is completely owned by the Borchard family, and phase 2 is the one that's owned by the 3 other owners?
Commissioner Lopez, yes, that is correct.
Okay, let's see. I think in the development agreement, this was on this presentation, slide 20, it said that it's in effect for 10 years. I mean, in the if instance, I mean, we saw how the economy has delayed previous projects. Is that something that would be amended, or what would be the process for extending that?
As the development agreement is drafted, it's 10 years plus a 10-year extension at the discretion of the city manager as long as the project is going forward. So the city wanted a shorter term to incentivize the developer to move forward on an expeditious basis. We don't want this property just to languish, for 20 years without development. So that's a way to help encourage the developer to move forward.
Thank you for that. There was a mention of the development or the construction of a 6.5 acre park. Is that also in phase 1, or is that somehow split or smaller if phase 2 doesn't fall in line or happen?
So Commissioner Dr. Lopez, the 6.5 acre park is part of phase 1. Okay. There is, I believe, a total of about 17 acres in the plan, but the remainder of that is in phase 2.
And next question, there was a mention of describing the special review process to ensure compliance with the special plan. Is that standard? Is that outlined? Is that, could you tell us a little bit about that special review process?
So Commissioner Dr. Lopez, the city currently has a pre-development advisory committee, which is a committee that includes our fire department, our police department, public works, planning, as well as our community development team. And they typically review preliminary plans to make sure that the project is on the right track in terms of being compliant before they do the full application submittal.
And the mention of the developer will pay a fee for the affordable farm worker housing, that was already established by the city council, correct?
So, Commissioner Lopez, yes, the concept went before the council. I don't believe the exact numbers have been established, but the concept did have to go before the council, who approved moving forward with that concept.
And for clarification, it was talked about in the slides at the start, where it talks about the developer will pay police and fire mitigation fee to offset proportional staffing. Is that one time? Is that ongoing? The figures that were shared with us.
So the equipment and fire station fee, that's a one-time payment, and then the staffing is an ongoing cost that would be covered by the CFD.
Thank you. And so again, this development agreement only applies to phase one, correct? And if the time came, phase two would come separately
Yes, that is correct.
for its own specific plan.
So, no, they wouldn't be subject to a new, so the specific plan does cover
Them in
that
case-
area.
So we wouldn't go
However,
through the whole EIR process.
yeah, essentially, as long as they were consistent with this EIR, they could move forward under this. However, there may be other things, there may be another development agreement for that property should they choose to go that route. But yes, the specific plan does cover phase two.
Let's see. Also on the staff presentation, slide 25, it talked about the ERI findings to offset regional, let's see, I don't understand my writing, regional impacts, mitigation measure requires payment of agricultural confirmation in lieu fee. Is that also a fee that has already been established or determined?
Yeah, so that fee is in the development agreement. So that's the ag mitigation fee that, again, the city council did preview the concept. But again, the exact number hadn't been established at that point. So this is basically the first time that the number is being presented.
And what about the transportation demand management fund fee? And that was in
Commissioner-
relation to the air quality.
So yes, that is a standard city impact fee that this project would be subject to. There's a rate that increases every year that goes up a certain amount. So that fee would be calculated at the time the building permits were being issued.
Great, thank you. And those are all my questions for that point.
Thank you, Commissioner Dr. Lopez. I'll look to Commissioner Connolly if you want to have questions now or do it in the second round. Pass for now. Okay, thank you. A few questions for myself. I don't think I have any for the applicant at this time, and so just for staff for the time being. In regards to, so the city has usually a capital improvement project plan, and there are going to be several capital projects within this development. Is there a split that the developer does and that the city does, or is it all on the developer right now? And can we ask more of the developer or recommend to the city council to do more so that it's not put in the CIP plan in the future?
Chair Rejo, the public infrastructure that is required for this specific plan would be the developer responsibility. However, if there are downstream improvement or within the vicinity of the project site that the specific plan is required to improve and is part of the city's master plan, then that portion the developer can do the improvement. In such case, the city would need to enter into a reimbursable process to reimburse the developer back the portion that the city is responsible for.
And follow up, what example would that be?
One example is, let's just say that if the city has a downstream sewer trunk line improvement that is within the capital improvement project planning. And this project is discharging to that sewer trunk line that would necessitate the upsizing because the development is coming online. So depending on the nature of the downstream sewer improvement, if the improvement is within the city's capital improvement project, then of course the city would be reimbursing back the developers the improvement fees. However, if the improvement is in excess of the city capital improvement, then the developer will have to pay its fair share for any portion beyond the city's responsibility.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that there's more or less a set level unless there's some exigent, extreme, or unusual circumstances, then the city would have to pay for it in general. But if not, then the developer pays for it, or am I switching that around? Oh, no. I got the explanation. It was the other way around. Thank you, Commissioner Connolly. Thank you for that. Moving on to my next question for the bicycle facilities. So thank you, Commissioner Nash, for asking about the different levels. Is that going to go through the Parks and Rec Commission and just the parks in general? Or is any part of this going to go through the Parks and Rec Commission in the future?
So Chair Reho, essentially the park kind of locations and the bicycle facilities would be approved by the Planning Commission. The plan does identify that the Oxnard Recreation and Community Service Department will be responsible for helping to design those public parks. So it's not clear if that would need to go before the Parks Commission for the design, but what's before the commission is the locations and the bike routes that would be approved by the commission here.
Okay, thank you very much. I think back to Mr. Chow, I think my next two questions are in regards to the topics you had in the staff presentation earlier. The recycled water program that was talked about, is that anywhere else in the city? Is that pretty new? Because, I mean, that sounds beneficial in that it should be done. Is that something that could be started somewhere else in the city?
Chair Weho, we have a public works staff member here that can share with you concerning the latest progress on the ASOL program.
Yeah, good evening. Michael Wolf, Director of Public Works. Is the specific question related to the Aquifer Storage and Recovery Project? Is that the recycled water project that you're referencing?
I just heard something about recycled and recharging, and so, yeah, thank you.
In the staff presentation earlier, they talked about the Aquifer Storage and Recovery Project. So if you actually drove by it today, you saw concrete being placed over at Campus Park. So we have a Aquifer Storage and Recovery well at Campus Park area. And the ultimate use of that will be to take water from our recycled water plant, which is our AWPF, our Advanced Water Purification Facility down there on Perkins, take that recycled water, ultra pure water, and pump it up to, or push it up towards Campus Park into the Aquifer Storage and Recovery well. So we'll inject it into the ground. It'll have a retention or detention time for a certain period of time based on the state's testing requirements, and then we'll pull that water back out and use it as potable water. So that's called indirect potable reuse, or IPR. That's the acronym that typically gets used. So the AWPF is already constructed. The Aquifer Storage and Recovery well, the well is actually already drilled. Again, if you drove by it today, you would have saw concrete being placed. They're getting ready to put the building in place and all the above ground pumps and controllers, and once that's all completed, then we'll start the permitting process with the state, and that permitting process will dictate how long that water has to stay in the ground before we can pull it back out as IPR.
Thank you. A brief follow-up. So you're saying that this is not mandated by anything with the state, and the city is doing this as something extra to the benefit of the city and its residents?
So there's a long history of recycled use and what it needs to be used for. resiliency of water supply is a big issue for every municipality. And the issue here with Ventura County is the groundwater and the availability of groundwater and the fact that we are technically in a lawsuit right now, an adjudication process. And so the Aquifer Storage and Recovery Facility, which is part of the GREAT program, which is the larger recycled water program for the city, has always been a component of providing resiliency and stability with our water in terms of our resources, because I think part of the question that was earlier this evening was their sources of water. So we get water from three sources typically. That's Cayugas, that's the import water, it's state water project water or Met water, and then two groundwater sources, one from United and one from our own system. And so not always are those sources of water available at all times. We saw a couple years ago in the drought that the state water project went to a unprecedented back-to-back 5% allocation, not seen in the state water project ever, and really put us in a position where we had to make sure we had other sources of water. And so those other sources of water typically fall in a couple categories, one of which the city of Oxnard has looked at for the last 15 or 20 years is recycled water. So it's not a mandate from the state, but it certainly is state regulations that drive some of these in terms of having to have water resiliency. And we talked a little bit about our urban water management plan and the 2020 urban water management plan, which was put together probably 5 years ago, and it's due for review. Talked about recycled water as being one of our future water sources. The good news is that if you look at actually the estimates from 5 years ago, we were estimating collectively that we would need about 28,000 acre feet of water a year. The good news is that City of Oxnard last year utilized about 21,500 acre feet. So we're not close to what was being projected 5 years ago. That's the good news. And so that allows us a little more flexibility as we look forward with our resources in terms of what are other resources for water. And it really doesn't put a large emphasis on the recycled water because we still have quite a bit of groundwater and state water project water that would satisfy that current demand. Like I said, the urban water management plan is due for an update in 2025. And so we'll go back to the planning process and decide is 28,000 acre feet the right number going forward or something different based on what the data has seen in the last 4 or 5 years. But we certainly are not seeing the water usage from our customers that was projected 4 or 5 years ago.
Thank you. And last quick follow-up, that management plan, water management plan, would that come up before the Planning Commission next year?
I will.
Because you said 2025.
Did we take it to the Planning Commission? We did not take it to the Planning Commission.
Oh.
It usually typically goes through our Public Works and Transportation Committee, and then would go to our council.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Second question for Mr. Chow or anyone else. There were a lot of comments, and I would like to even describe it as an inordinate number of comments in regards to the soil tests or just the soil quality. And you did mention that there's going to be soil testing, and I did read that there's going to be remediation of the soil if needed. I just wanted an explanation of how and when you would test them, and if they're above levels, what would that do to the development, if anything? I'm doing this mostly to confirm that the city has a process in regards to testing that the soil toxicity levels are below the are safe, and that if they aren't, that there is a process defined already that the city will do.
Chair Rejo, to answer your question, the environmental assessment report are established by the engineering soil professional. They, in essence, establish the process in which the soil needs to be remediated. The extent of the soil to be remediated, we don't necessarily know the precise amount. What is clear is that activities would only occur when the project is at the grading phase, in which at that time, the city will require a full list of engineering reports and soil report before construction can commence. So the city process is that we don't necessarily dictate the technical process of how that be done. However, we require the developer to submit us a full laundry list of all the engineering report, so that way we can review and making sure that they comply with local, county, as well as state regulations.
Thank you very much. Moving on to, it might be Mr. Roselle or Mr. Pearson. In regards to, if I remember correctly from the presentation, the PLA, that there isn't one and that there is something similar in regards to getting some of those qualities into the development agreement. I bring it up partially because I remember 2 to 3 years ago, previous Chair Chavez mentioned that we're always having projects that sometimes are being requested to a PLA, and that the Planning Commission has to recommend or amend it so that there will be a PLA, or that it's put in by the City Council. And I remember 1 to 2 years ago that the mayor wanted a PLA stance by the city. And I just want to confirm that, or I want to request, is it possible that the Planning Commission can reiterate the request of City Council to actually have a stance so that we're not going through this every time, and that the project applicants know where they're going to stand in regards to the PLA? I think my question is can you just confirm that the City Council really hasn't done anything in regards to it? And you can say no comment if you want to.
At this time, the City Council has taken no action to require project labor agreements. I do want to emphasize, if you look at Exhibit E of the development agreement, it does lay out the local preference program as well as the local hire program. So there is language added in here, which is the first time this has been included in one of the development agreements within the city, which does require the developer take specific steps to ensure local hiring of workers in businesses within Ventura County. So there is an emphasis on assisting the local workers in our area, in our city, and in the county. So this is a very positive step, and it's the first time this has been done in the city of Oxnard, to the best of my knowledge.
Thank you. In regards to that, a couple of the comments, one in the FEIR and one just now in the past day, they were asking also for training requirements. Is that something that we recommend to the City Council, or is that already somewhere in the agreement that they may have missed?
The letter, which I would actually call it the document dump from the attorney, which was not received till this afternoon, provided over 300 pages of comments when the CIR process has been in process for a number of years. They did ask for the local training. That is not something which the council has chosen to impose at this time. And the Exhibit A provides, I think, a good medium ground for ensuring that local workers will not need to drive to Riverside County or to LA County for work, but will have good paying jobs right here in our community.
Okay, thank you very much for that explanation. I'll do one last question for now. For Fire Chief Hamilton, in the FEIR for the commission, I think it's chapter 9-53, Fire Protection Services. The ICMA recommended a standard of 1 firefighter for every 1,000 people. However, our current or the proposed with the project only has 1/6 of that. And so I know at least 2 council members have always said that public safety is one of the biggest things that the city is in charge of. And I'm wondering, is this normal that any or all of the cities are not meeting this ICMA recommended standard? And do you feel comfortable with whatever proposed increases that you might have with your department with the increase in population that this project could have in the next 10 years?
Chair, thank you for the question. I appreciate it. And I'll give the short answer, and then if I could provide a little bit more context around that. So the short answer is we're not going to make a meaningful difference to that ratio with the development, with the size of the Teal Club project. But also that ICMA standard, I'm not sure that I'd characterise it as a standard as much as a sort of a comparative measure that ICMA uses. So for the fire service, we primarily get staffing or resource recommendations or standards from three sources. And so that's the National Fire Protection Association, or NFPA. Their standard primarily is around the assembly time for effective firefighting force. So it's all about response times to an emergency incident. That's getting four personnel on scene within 5 minutes, or a full firefighting force of 15 personnel on scene within 8 minutes. The next one is the Insurance Services Office, or ISO. The City of Oxnard currently enjoys a Class 2 rating. It goes from 1 to 10. And so that standard, they use a fire suppression rating system where they like to have an engine every mile and a half of road travel, and then a ladder truck with every 2.5 miles of road traveled. As of our standards of cover study, we met the engine standard and about 80% of our roads. We were within 1.5 miles of a fire station, and then about 65% of our roads were a ladder truck company. And so that relates back to my answer earlier in the hearing, where we wouldn't get much of a return on our investment by putting a fire station within Teal Club, because you're not going to change that number of road distance travelled for that fire station. And then the last standard that can be used is the Commission on Fire Accreditation International, or CFAI. It's not a process we've embarked on yet. That's more a sort of an evaluation process. We do a self-evaluation and go before the Commission to be accredited and become an accredited agency. It is something that we're looking at. It is a significant workload to get that accreditation, and so we're hoping perhaps in our next strategic plan that we'd have that as one of our goals. But this measure of firefighters per thousand is more a way of comparison, but it's not necessarily a national standard per se, and so not something that that we're focused on as much as NFPA, ISO, and CFAI.
Thank you very much for that explanation. I was part of that organization, so that really piqued my interest that there was a major difference between that, but I like your explanation, and I basically agree with it should be the response time, not exactly just input, but what actually happens. A quick, I don't know if quick follow-up, but a follow-up in regards to the ambulance services. Is that considered part of the fire protection in terms of planning? I didn't see a specific call out for that, and the only reason I asked is because you wanted to have a separate ambulance for Oxnard, separate from the county. With that, I believe, having been lost, is that going to negatively affect South Oxnard, was your reasoning why you wanted to get it separated. So I just wanted to know that this project is not going to negatively impact South Oxnard.
That's a great question. So indeed, we have been travelled quite a road when it comes to EMS service and specifically ambulance service here in the City of Oxnard. I think what you're referring to is Assemblymember Bennett's legislation, AB 1168, which was vetoed by the Governor last month, or in September. I guess now we're in November. But with that being vetoed, I think there's still strong support from the Board of Supervisors to ensure that across the county, we have equitable ambulance service. And certainly I've been engaging with the supervisors on that goal. So to answer your question, I don't see any way where this development could negatively impact South Oxnard and equitable ambulance service. But just to go back to comments that I've made earlier in the hearing is we would like to hit a goal of having a paramedic or an ALS resource on the scene of those most critical medical calls in under 5 minutes, because that's when we're really going to change patient outcomes. Now, that is going to come from a mix of fire department resources and ambulance resources. And so that's part of certainly what we've been arguing to include in the RFP document that the Board of Supervisors is currently working on.
Okay, thank you very much for those explanations. Appreciate it. I think that's all my questions right now. I'm going to look to the commission if they want to have a second round of questions, go to a break, or go to public comment. I'll go first to Commissioner Nash, then Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. Commissioner Nash.
Microphone. Well, I was remiss earlier in not expressing my deep gratitude to not only our planning staff, but the applicant team, and also to all of the members of the public who submitted comment letters. I thought it was an exceptional effort. All three legs of the stool were definitely working together on this one. So thank you to everybody for your effort. My question is for staff, and I forgot to address this earlier, but on the farmland mitigation fee of $2.2 million. Now, initially I was 100% against farm worker housing because I thought conservation easements was the way to go to actually protect farmland. But in talking to some people and reading the document, I understand the need to have this money go to farm worker housing. My question is, will this $2.2 million be layered with other funding sources, or is this a standalone pot of money? Because as we all know, the cost of building individual units is approaching, $500,000 per unit. So I would hope that we could layer this money to actually provide a number of farm worker housing units.
So Commissioner Nash, when we were going through this process, we were working closely with our housing department. So our housing director, Emilio Ramirez, was also part of that discussion. And yes, the idea would be to potentially be able to leverage this funding to build additional housing. So yes, this would go along with potentially other pots of money to help develop that affordable farm worker housing.
And the site for this farm worker housing there is no site at this time.
So Commissioner Nash, no, at this time a site has not been identified. However, the intent is that it would be here in the city of Oxnard.
Okay, I do want to ask you one further question on road improvements to Doris and Teal Club Road west of Patterson. Now, that is not the responsibility of the applicant. Does the city have any idea when those road improvements would occur, if they ever will occur? So basically, from the terminus of the specific plan west to Victoria.
So are we talking about improvements like ultimate right-of-way improvements? Or are we, if you can give me a flavor of what you're talking about in terms of improvements?
Lane expansion, elimination of the drainage canal on the north side of Doris, safety improvements, and of course, my bugaboo is always Class 1 bike paths, but I understand that's another discussion.
So there's currently in our city council approved capital improvement plan, there's no projects for ultimate right-of-way improvements, which would be lane width improvements. We do have in our capital improvement plan a update to our master plan of drainage. And inside that master plan of drainage, part of that evaluation will be the opportunity to potentially eliminate some of those roadside drainages and put them in underground piping systems. So that will be part of that analysis, but not necessarily an actual capital project in our CIP for doing that. It's analyzing it first and then potentially prioritizing it as a project going forward.
Okay, thank you, because obviously as we force more traffic onto these roads, the drainage canal especially is a major item of concern to me as far as our ability to protect the people who use that road, because there is no bullocks or anything to prevent people from veering off, so I understand the nature of the issue. So thank you for that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash. Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
I didn't say it the first time, but I just want to thank city staff and the developer and all that for all of this fine work that you've done. Lots of reading this past weekend or two, but it has been good and you've done good work. I just had two quick questions. One is for notification. I see that we did a 300-foot notification around, is that around the border of the project, or is that just the businesses close to T.O. Club Road?
So, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart, the notice is from the perimeter of the Teal Club specific plan area. So it would included some of the residential to the north as well as to the east, and then the properties to the west and south as well.
And did we put signage out too?
Yes, so there's 3 signs posted on the property in different locations so that we could try to make sure that the public was aware of the meeting.
Okay, and I just say that because I'm somebody that really supports, public comments. And so I expected the room to be really packed. And so I don't see that. And so I'm just concerned that, did the word get out? Did the people that wanted to come? If they don't want to come, that's fine. But, giving everybody an opportunity to express themselves.
So in addition to that, we also did publish it in the local newspaper as well. We also do have our Planning Commission interested parties lists that we also, every time we publish an agenda, we send it out to that interested parties list. And then there was an interested parties list for this project that was also notified. So there was multiple forms of public outreach done for this meeting.
All right, thank you. And then just something about water. Do we still have a salt water intrusion problem with our groundwater here in Oxnard? Or has it gotten better? Has it gotten worse?
The answer is yes. We have a saltwater intrusion problem.
Okay.
I'm not sure I can give you a under 2-hour answer about whether it's better or worse. So as mentioned before, we are in a legal process called the adjudication, and part of that adjudication has to do with groundwater rights. And our Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency, which oversees the groundwater basin, has lots of resolutions and ordinances that direct and or restrict or dictate how much water you can pump from the ground. And a lot of that's based on the fact that we do have a seawater intrusion issue. We have some seawater management areas, especially over by Point Magoo in that area. And so we have certain restrictions on how much can be pumped because of that. Part of our AWPF water, we actually deliver that to some of the farmers in that area so that they don't pump, so they don't increase the seawater intrusion. So yes, we still have a seawater intrusion.
Okay. And staying on that kind of same subject, the water comes through those purple pipes. We're going to build some parks. We have some medians. Are we utilizing that recycled water as opposed to our palatable water to water those areas?
Vice Chair Dr. Stewart, I take the presumption that your question is relating to this specific plan. And if so,
yes.
The current recycled water system through the purple pipe will not be available for utilization for this specific plan. The purpose of that is that the existing capacity is only to serve the existing customers right now.
Okay, that answers my question. I didn't know if we missed something or if it's something I didn't catch in the reading and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. Anyone else from the commission? I'll do a few of my questions to wrap up. In regards, there was something called an avigation easement. I'm just curious to know what is the likely form of that, and I'm pretty sure that avigation easement is going to be on the parcels closest to the airport.
So, Chair Rejo, the navigation easement is essentially an easement over the airspace of the property, and that would be likely over the entire project, just given its proximity, since it's within the airport sphere of influence.
Okay. Do you know the volume or the height, or what are the height limits of that easement? And I assume that avigation easement means that nothing can be built within that area, up to that area.
So, Chair Rejo, I'm not sure of what the exact height would be there. It is something that is prepared in coordination with the airport. So they are the ones who would review and then would ultimately work with the applicant to finalize that document.
Right, thank you for that. In regards to the greenbelt, is that, I see that the greenbelt of Oxnard and Ventura are basically adjacent or touching each other. Are we planning whatever is going to happen in that greenbelt in the future with the city of Ventura, or are we working on those separately? And my recommendation is to work with the city of Ventura in the future in regards to that.
So, Chair Rejo, the intent of the greenbelt is to basically not have development in that area. So it's basically an agreement to basically preserve those areas. Generally, it aligns with the SOAR areas as well. So there's no development proposed in that area at this time.
So we wouldn't necessarily be working hand in hand with Ventura, but directly with the county of Ventura in regards to the greenbelt. Is that a correct assumption?
So the Greenbelt Agreement is between the state of Oxnard and Ventura. There's also one between the Oxnard and Camarillo on the other side of the city. So the agreements are currently in place right now.
Okay, thank you very much. In regards to the affordable housing, I know that it has to be at least 15%. Can the commission recommend something higher?
So Chair Rejo, the 15% is required per the urban village. So in our general plan, it calls out 15%. The commission could ultimately recommend a higher percentage, but as it is currently proposed, it is consistent with the general plan as it relates to urban villages. They are also proposing a mixture of just very low and low income. So they are providing a higher percentage there.
Okay, then last follow-up to that. It's not a realm of possibility that the development and the city council could propose a 20 or 25% instead. It wouldn't necessarily have to go back to do a whole FEIR process. Is that correct?
So Chair Rejo, since that wouldn't change the development, it wouldn't. So yes, the commission could recommend that, and that would be presented to city council.
Right. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I'll look to the rest of the commission for a last round of questions. Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
Thank you. One last question that just jumped out at me, and with the development agreements, page 28 or 220 of the packet, but more specifically page 28 of, let's see here, of attachment C. It says, no prevailing wage requirements. Developer and city have made every effort in reaching this agreement to ensure that its terms and conditions will not result in a non-intended prevailing wage requirement. Can you tell us a little bit about that there?
Yes, happy to do so. this basically indicates that, as you just indicated, that prevailing wage is not applicable, but in some situations it is applicable. So for example, to the extent that the developer is constructing backbone infrastructure that'll be dedicated to the city, that has to be paid prevailing wage. So there's definitely parts of it that will be paid prevailing wage, but to the extent that it's not legally required, the developer will not be required to pay prevailing wage for construction work within the specific plan area.
And so, that being said, I'm trying to understand the part that was added and has never been included before, but I'm having a difficulty reconciling that with the local hire for good paying jobs notion.
Well, there's multiple layers here. So for the local hire is, as was requested by the labor unions in the letter that you got today, is, hire local residents so they will not have to drive to Riverside, to LA, San Luis Obispo County, et cetera. So that is part of the concept. And it is clear that those two are not mutually exclusive. You could have local hire requirements. Many of these shops pay prevailing wage because of the shortage of labor, so they're going to have to pay wages that are actually comparable or higher than prevailing wage. So there is the balance, but where legally required, this project will pay prevailing wage. Where it's not, they won't necessarily pay it, but whatever the prevailing market conditions are, prevailing wage still may be paid.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dr. Lopez. Last call for questions. We'll move on unless the commission would request a recess. My plan is to have public comment and then do at least a 10-minute recess after that. Seeing no objection, I will go first to the 3 submitted public commenters, and then I'll ask Madam Secretary for any in-person requests. The first person is Linda Braunschweiger, and second is Jonathan Duran. Is Ms. Linda Braunschweiger here or on Zoom land? Ms. Braunschweiger, you have 3 minutes. You can begin.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Great, thank you. My name is Linda Braunschweiger. I am the CEO of the Housing Trust Fund Ventura County and the Housing Land Trust Ventura County. We are a nonprofit lender to developers building affordable housing throughout Ventura County. Today, we have committed or funded over $40 million since 2013, produced 1,780 units. As a land trust, we are here to preserve and develop land for affordable housing in perpetuity. Through our work, we recognize the need for diverse housing stock available to all community members. Today, there is a tremendous need for housing, with Ventura County being #1 in the nation with the least affordable housing stock, particularly for those at 120% of AMI and below. Both rental and home ownership are desperately needed. In order to maintain a strong workforce living here in Ventura County, we need a range of for-sale type housing, opportunities for first-time homebuyers, and affordable rental housing. Without diversity in housing supply, Ventura County will continue to struggle economically. We are pleased to see that the Teal Club plan provides housing for our essential farm workers, which ensures our ag community a reliable workforce and economic viability. The Teal Club specific plan provides the variety of housing needed in our community. The urban village design with walking and bike trails and transit shelters sends a clear message to our community that Teal Club development cares for its surrounding neighbors and supports ways to reduce vehicle miles traveled. Thank you for the opportunity to share. We recommend the approval of the Teal Club specific plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Braunschweiger. The next is Mr. Jonathan Duran, followed by Mr. Larry Stein. Mr. Jonathan Duran? Okay, we see you, and you have, I'll wait for the madam. Okay, we don't. My apologies. Let's mute everyone else, and Mr. Duran, we'll give you time until the end of the public comment if you happen to come back. We'll go with Mr. Larry Stein. If you have 3 minutes, and you can begin
Chair
when ready.
Rejo, he's on the line. I can.
Oh, I apologize, Mr. Stein. Going back to Mr. Duran, you have 3 minutes.
All right, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello? All right, hello, commissioners, staff. My name is Jonathan Duran. I'm a representative with the Western States Carpenters, Local 805, the local representative that covers the Ventura, Santa Barbara, and San Luis Obispo area. The reason why I'm reaching out is just talking about this project, about opportunities for people to be able to work close to home and opportunities to be a part of projects like this. Yes, we would like to see some type of local hire, some opportunities for individuals that have graduated from an accredited apprenticeship program or have individuals that are coming through the program, through the accredited apprenticeship program, to be able to work here and have opportunities to. Without having an agreement, developers are, as much as they say that they'll do their best kept effort, but in reality, it is not going to happen. So like I said, for us as an organization, is we're partnering with the school districts. We're partnering for opportunities with second chance individuals, veterans, women, minorities, and we're giving them the opportunities to be able to work in the trades, but without developers and then also without the cities standing with us, it's harder for us. But what we're looking for is opportunities for these individuals to be able to work close to home, have decent living, make a good livable wage, and have the benefits with them. And so they can be able to afford these houses that this developer is going to be building. Not, hey, we want affordable housing, but what is affordable in Ventura County? What's affordable in Oxnard? And that's what we look at. It's like, hey, we want to have opportunities for our membership to be able to live here, work here, and provide for their families within Ventura County. But we seldom see is with these projects from the Spanish Springville development to Wagon Wheel to the River Park development, these developers are coming in and then they're bringing the outsourcing all the manpower from out of the area. So again, it might sound great for the development agreement saying, hey, we'll do our best kept effort, we'll try. But the try is they're going to put a 3-inch a roll of toilet paper next to the toilet, and that's their try. Reality is that's where it falls. Without any agreement, without any understanding with it, we won't have an opportunity to be able to put our manpower to work. And again, with the commissioners, I applaud you guys for bringing it to their attention about, hey, opportunities to have agreements, have community workforce agreements, have opportunities for individuals to work close to home. But that's what I have to say. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Duran. Our next commenter is Mr. Larry Stein, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, commissioners, applicant, and staff. My name is Larry Stein. I've been following this project for more than a decade and a half, so I'm somewhat familiar with this project. My first concern is staff has not been able to determine if the air at Teal Club Road is safe. I've asked staff, they don't know. They're using air quality report from an area 2.5 miles away, and the airplanes use lead-based fuels. How safe is the air? We don't know. I would question that and have have the commission question ask, how safe is the air? The second question is, how affordable is affordable? As a previous speaker just spoke, a lot of people don't meet the affordable income because they're not going to pay enough. People are earning $20, $30, $35 an hour will not be able to afford 3,000 square foot homes. I recommend that the commission set aside or set standards that housing cannot be more than 1,000 square feet. But building housing, 800, 1,000 square feet may be small, but it's affordable. It is truly affordable for people making $30 an hour, $35 an hour. How many people coming out of college have huge student debt? There's quite a bit. There's a lot of income. Now you're going to be putting in CFDs. A CFD is going to at least $300 to a rent payment or $300 to a mortgage payment. Perhaps do away with the CFDs. Another concern I have is the infrastructure. We've heard about water. The city council has not developed the funds, have not set aside the funds to make the urban water management plan affordable. They've not donated the funds to make it built. We're supposed to produce 14,000 acre feet of recycled water per year. Ask, how much has the city council funded that program to build the wells? They spent 5 years to build one well. The wells were supposed to be built in 2010, 2012. They've sat on this project to build the wells for 15 years. I recommend not approve the project until the infrastructure is in place. Make sure that the water infrastructure is in place. Please make sure that the sewer infrastructure is in place. We have a water project that has been completed. We have the urban water management plan that's great on paper, but has not been funded. Our sewer plant is falling apart. Funds have not been set aside by city council to fix our sewer plants to the point where it's supposed to be fixed. I would suggest very strongly that this project is great. The farmers have a right to sell their land and develop their land. That's wonderful. But the city has responsibility to make sure the infrastructure is in place before the housing is built. Please recommend that this project does not get approved until the infrastructure is in place. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Stein. Madam Secretary, are there any other public commenters for this item?
Chair Rejo, it appears someone has raised their hand online.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to that person. And if you could just, you have 3 minutes and you can begin.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good evening, Chair and Commission and staff and the public. My name is Douglas Portello. I'm a 38-year resident of Oxnard. I live in the Cabrillo neighborhood. I was chair of the neighborhood council for 2 years. We actually had the Teal Club specific plan as an agenda item 3 times during that time. And we had Dennis Hargrave and we had Jay show up and they gave a great presentation. We listened, we had lots of questions, lots of information was shared. There's a number of concerns with us residents in proximity to this plan. Number one is AB 413 is now going into effect in 2025, January 1st on parking. This plan, as most development plans, do not supply adequate parking. They talk about public transportation and all that other nonsense. We're too in love with our cars. And they're going to be coming over to our neighborhood and parking their cars over here. And now we've got 4 parking spaces less on each corner due to this new law. The other question is the air quality. Larry brought it up. Santa Clara Airport was shut down because they found lead in the children in proximity to that airport, which is similar size to Oxnard, worse than Flint, Michigan. So there's lots of things that are a red flag on this plan. I know that Borchard Farms have been wanting to sell this property and have it developed for a long time, but this is about public safety. This is about our quality of life. Now, traffic is no longer something that needs to be mitigated on the EIR. So it's not LOS, it's miles traveled and all that nonsense. Well, all I know is because of the high school over at Patterson Gonzalez, we're jammed up during peak traffic hours. Now, from Doris, from Patterson to Victoria, that's only 2 lanes. With that huge culvert there, there's no plans on expanding that area. The school wants to build a K-8 school right there at Patterson and Doris. Now, you got parents dropping off kids, picking up kids right there. You got all the increased traffic. That development is going to have more traffic with the residences and the businesses than the Cabrillo neighborhood. We have no place to go. That's going to be a traffic and parking nightmare. Now, it may not be consideration for Sacramento or the ERR, but I sure hope it's a consideration for our city council. Now, the other issue is about the overlay. Little Farm Road is right in proximity to the airport. Now, previously, for their master plan, that whole area was not safe because of the proximity of the airport. Now, this plan is not in the flight protection zone, but it certainly is in the flight path for planes. And we've got those small planes with leaded fuel, and they're flying low. We've already had 2 of them go down recently. We've had 3 in the last 15 years. Now, it is a safety issue. When you have residents there, you have school children there.
Thank you, Mr.
huge
Portello. Your
issue.
time is up. Thank you. Madam Secretary, is there any other, looks like there's a couple hands, but I'm not sure.
Chair, they already spoke.
Okay.
No new speakers.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Secretary. And with no other public commenters that I can see,
Chairs, a member of the public is raising her hand.
okay. Yes, we do have it on the agenda. There are 3 different ways, but if you would like to make a public comment now, we can give you 3 minutes and just sign a card after, so for the Madam Secretary for our records. Thank you.
My name's Kirsten Meeker, and my family owns the property south of the site on the Ventura Road frontage. So we own the whole 2 blocks from Teal Club to Little Farms Road. And this is the first I've ever heard of the lower density proposal, and I'm really interested in that because I feel that you're ignoring the fact that that whole neighborhood south of the site is actually residential. I know the city is put like industrial, and they keep saying it's by the airport, blah, blah, blah. But that's not what it is right now. Right now it's in a residential neighborhood, and it has been traditionally. And, you know, in spite of whatever the zoning is, I don't see a lot of changes there. So I'm looking forward to the Teal Club site plan producing a more residential cohesive neighborhood. And some of the concerns I have are the plan for widening the road is just gonna butt it right up to Teal Club. We've already had a car take out the power pole this past year, and we've had cars come through our hedge onto our property. So I don't know what plan you have for dealing with traffic barreling south on Ventura Road and just running right into the corner there at Teal Club, because you have this big wide road and all of a sudden you're going to narrow it. So I would like to hear what the plan for that. The other issue we have right now is the city put in like crosswalks, and people walk across to our property, and then they're walking down Ventura Road in the hashed off lane that's supposed to be like turn lane. So there's no pedestrian access on our side of Ventura Road, and people are unsafely walking down the road from Teal Club to the airport property. And they really need to be routed to the other side where there's a sidewalk. So that's another issue. I don't understand what's going to happen with this navigation easement when we have existing properties that don't have a navigation easement that I know of. So what are they going to do about the existing properties that are there near the airport? And then finally, when you're talking about the farm worker housing and this little fee you're going to get, I keep wondering, well, why aren't you going to build it as part of the development? So you should have some affordable farm worker housing there on the thing that you're developing. That makes more sense to me than collecting a fee and then not really getting anything. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your comments. Madam Secretary, are there any other comments?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. And at this time, I'll ask the applicant if they wish to respond to public comment, closing remarks from staff, and then the promised break that I mentioned. So please, sir.
Yes, thank you. Dennis Hardgrave again, representing the applicants. Just a couple of comments. I would first maybe could give some clarification based on my own experience about how the navigation easement works. First of all, there will be on title, not just in the Airport Land Use Commission requires that there be, the avigation easement notifies people of record, on record when they purchase a home, that not just in HOA docs, but it's also in your escrow documents. It's a title overlay that goes on the map when the track map records, so that every home buyer gets notification that there is an airport there and everything related to an airport. That language is very precise, and it's approved by the Airport Land Use Commission. Those are in place, for example, on everything in that Springville development I mentioned. That's one thing. Another issue related to avigation, you were talking about heights and things like that. There is, the reference came to the 1 in 100 ratio that the FAA has to, have a review of. That is one of the standards. It just means that a project has to go through an FAA review. We've worked on a project basically at the southeast corner of Victoria and Teal Club Road for a parcel that is now zoned. And when we ran through the design process, in that particular case, or in most of these cases, as you work your way along Teal Club Road, the FAA standard is this: from the runway, it's a 7-to-1, 7 feet out for every 1 feet up in height that you can go. And in other cases, it's from the northern property line of the airport. So just to clarify, what happens is there is a height that you cannot exceed. It's an invisible plane you can't go past with your building heights. So what happens when we did one of the design studies, and we've done it also in the Camarillo Airport area, we've done the same thing for those along where Target and some of those developments are. You really, for the first 140 feet, basically from the fence line of those properties, all you can do is parking lots. So that's all parking generally there. You even have to keep your light standards below a certain height so that they're not a risk for an airplane. As you go north, by the time you get to Teal Club Road, that navigational height limit does not impact the height of buildings as proposed in the Teal Club specific plan. So that's how the navigational easement works on two different fronts. One being an overlay that everybody's notified you're near an airport. And then the other is specifically how tall buildings can be as you move north from the airport. So I hope that clarifies that. The other issue I'd be very candid about, we have negotiated a very extensive development agreement with the city. It's been a long process. It's been a fair process. And we have gone to the point where as we've said, we've done 60% of the affordable housing will be very low income. That's a great benchmark to set of that affordable, of that 15% of the overall project. Of that 15%, 60% of those units will be very low income. And then the other 40% will be lower income. So that we feel is a fair benchmark to do. It's a very strong benchmark. It provides a good stock of housing. And so with that, we feel like that's as far as we'd really could go with all the other benefits that have been plugged into this and the burden of cost and the off-site and on-site expenses. So I just wanted to clarify that. Other than that, everything that's been discussed tonight we think is a positive step forward for the project.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hargrave. And we'll go to staff for any closing remarks before I actually close the public hearing.
Thank you, Chair. This evening we heard from many city staff members, the fire department, engineering, public works staff, and excuse me, we heard that the proposed specific plan, the project before you, is consistent with the general plan and all other city council adopted policies. And so you have the public comment letters that were recently received. We did discuss those a little bit. Again, everything that we've heard this evening does not change staff recommendations. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dabrowski. And with that, the public hearing is now closed. If there's no objection, we'll go into a recess until 8:35 p.m. Thank you. We're in recess. Good evening, everyone. We're back in session. We'll now move on to the deliberation. Commission. This time is for deliberation. I'd just like to remind the commission, I know we'll probably have a couple of questions. Let's try to keep that minimal or eliminated and focus on the deliberation and eventual motion. Commission. Commissioner Nash.
Thank you, Chair Rejo. So what we have before us tonight is basically the last large chunk of undeveloped land in the city limits. It's our last chance to propose a specific plan, an urban village, and get it right. And I think a lot of what I've heard tonight from the applicant team does get things right. It addresses a lot of my longtime concerns. So it's kind of disappointing that it's taken so long to get to this point, but I guess all good things take time. And I do want to reiterate my deep appreciation to the city staff, Joe and his team, and the applicant team, everybody who made comments, the planning commission. I think we've all put a lot of work into this. We've had, a lot of it is repetitive, boilerplate, but we've had, 2,000 pages of documentation to go through. So it's been a lot of work, and I appreciate everybody who's put in the time to understand the issues and ask the questions and try to get things right. So there's just a few little tweaks that I don't even think would cost that much money to get my approval for this project, and I've discussed them earlier tonight. So when it comes time to make the motion, I hope that we can incorporate some of those ideas that have been discussed into the final motion. At this point, I'm interested in hearing what my colleagues have to say, so I'll open up the floor to them. And I just want to, again, express my thanks to everybody who's had a part in this. I know it's been, a decades-long process. It's been a long time, so thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash. Before I go on to the rest of the commission, I'd like to ask Mr. Rosell or Mr. Pearson, if any changes want to be made, do they need a formal amendment, or can they just, because it's in the form of a recommendation, that our discussions are enough to notify council of what we recommend as a planning commission?
So Chair Rejo, any of the recommendations that we're presenting to council should come from the commission as a whole. So it should be part of the recommendation that would be voted on by the commission.
Thank you. And then a follow-up, does it need legally that any amendments that are made that need to be put on a specific resolution, or can we just say what the amendment is and staff will be able to insert or implement that into the relevant resolution or resolutions?
So Chair Rejo, it would depend largely on the changes that are being proposed, but ultimately it would need to be incorporated into those resolutions. So depending on kind of the number, if it's a small change, you might be able to make that here. If it's more substantial, then we may have to bring that back as a revised resolution before the commission.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pearson. At this time, I'll go to the other members of the commission. Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Yes, I was just wondering, the resolutions that are clean, can we take all of those at once? And then the ones that we want to make some amendments to, can we take those perhaps one at a time?
At this time, I'll treat that as a parliamentary inquiry. I would recommend, you know what, I'm not going to recommend. I'll suggest that an option is to move the recommended action by staff, and at that time, any single member can pull off any of the specific resolutions. Once those are pulled off, we'll discuss and vote on the remaining resolutions as a whole or as a group, and then move on to the separate resolutions. I'll look to Ms. Roselle if there's anything I should change in regards to the legalities.
No, that is the preferred method.
Thank you, Ms. Roselle. Back to Vice Chair Dr. Stewart, if you have deliberation at this time. If not, I'll move on to the other members of the commission. Okay, thank you, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
Awesome, thank you. Well, I'll take the opportunity to, like my colleagues, thank staff and the support that has brought us to this point, this hearing and this meeting this evening. Want to definitely also recognize the members of the public, both those over the years past and those who wrote in, joined us today remotely or here in person. I certainly was one of those folks who expected a larger public comment period this evening, but perhaps it's that the project has reached a level of satisfaction for the masses, and perhaps that's why folks aren't here. Let's see, there are a couple of comments, both that I loved and then a couple that I liked a little less. In terms of the loves, the positives. I love that the specific plan integrates a walkable setting, linked together by trails, bike lanes, neighborhood sidewalks, that urban village concept, and the emphasis on highly visible pedestrian routes, and the interconnection of the neighborhoods, and the other uses that are proposed, the recreational opportunities and the on-site public transportation. I love all that. I love that 15% of the total resident development will be affordable housing for very low and lower income workforce households. I love the infrastructure and the intersection improvements that have been proposed along Doris and Teal Club at Victoria. I know that one of them doesn't have an intersection at it, which makes it difficult for people trying to enter or cross Victoria. So I do think that that will be a positive for anyone who travels through and across Victoria, not just those folks in this proposed specific plan. In terms of the items that I don't love so much, it's certainly one point that was mentioned this evening by commissioners, as well as one of the public comments. I still don't love that we still haven't seen Oxnard take action on a community workforce agreement, although there are steps to highlight the local hire and local workforce, but I also just don't necessarily love the language of the no prevailing wage requirements. All things considered, just glad to be at this point. I mean, we looked at over the years the need for not only housing but affordable housing. We have been diligent in our review of the housing element, as well as the land areas across the city that have been identified to help us meet our goals. And so, all things considered, certainly looking forward to the amendments that are proposed by my colleagues, but am very happy with the work that has been brought to us, and certainly just the opportunities for not only current residents, but future generations, those younger Oxnard residents who would hope, aspire, and dream of being able to buy their own home in this city, to be close to not only family, but the home where they themselves grew up as well. So just thank you all.
Thank you, Commissioner Dr. Lopez. Any others from the commission? So, Commissioner Schuelke.
Sorry, I wanted to say again just how much I appreciated the work that went into this proposal. Elections and governance have been on my mind this month, and nationwide we've seen an increasing amount of animus toward public servants, and we even see that in some quarters here locally, which is at times disappointing for me. I'd just say for any of those skeptics out there, I'd say they should check out materials like what we've received this evening and listen to some of the the comments that we've received from staff this evening as well. We've heard from some really hardworking, intelligent people, and I know the thanks often gets thrown out there in a way that feels like we're checking a box. I'm so proud to be a resident of Oxnard and to have folks like those we've heard from this evening working for our city. So I really want to thank you. I appreciate it. There was one public comment I heard this evening that falls outside the scope, I suppose, of this particular project, but the sidewalk there along Ventura and Teal, just south of the crosswalk where there is no sidewalk, and if we're talking about this development being very walkable, I imagine we'll have even more folks hoping to walk down to the McDonald's and to the airport and hopefully to a new drugstore that goes back into the now vacant space there. I've seen folks walk along that stretch as well, and it concerns me. In any case, though, as my colleagues have mentioned, there's a lot in this proposal that's really impressive, and I appreciate the staff answering our questions this evening, as well as those I submitted in writing. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Schuelke. For me, there's a lot to like and a lot to love in this project. I mean, a couple of decades of work have gone into this from the developer, from staff, from just indirectly and directly, the inputs from the public comments. There are a few hundred pages of that in the FEIR. And I'll look forward to some of the amendments that might be proposed. I think for me in particular, I was just mostly looking at the finances in terms of, is that something that is a good deal for the city? Is that something a good deal for the future residents? And so a lot of my questions beforehand were in regards to the finances. Let's see. I do like the traffic calming devices. I think some of the neighborhoods should already be upgraded to have those. And definitely with the comments that there could and will be more traffic, I hope that the city is going to consider not even the traditional, but even innovative ways to have traffic calming devices. The applicant mentioned that, for me, I'm a big believer of mixed-use development, just specifically in regards to traffic. Businesses will be using that space in the daytime, residents at night, and so it's kind of a win-win situation in regards to parking. And I do understand the developer's hesitation because it is a little bit complicated because people are used to just doing commercial or just residential. And at least for the developer and for the city council, it can be done, and I believe it should be done, but for me, it's not enough in regards to change anything specifically in regards to, I assume it would go into the general plan amendment or pre-zoning or something like that. So I think that's just a general, that I'm glad we have the mixed use. I'm glad we have the multiple density levels in an area. I understand trepidation for some residents if they're in a low residential to be near high or medium residential or some different density. I remember there was one place, I forgot where I heard it from, is that you want a place where there are a variety of people in different parts of their life, not to have to move to a different city. And if you have different varieties of housing in a general area, you're going to be able to build community a lot more. That is a little bit opposite of the way I'm thinking because it's more qualitative than quantitative, but I do believe that it's in general true. And so hopefully the residents are not going to be scared that there's going to be different types of development and think of it as a way to increase longevity and continuity to the community that they live and hopefully will love. At least when it comes to the motion to be proposed, I probably will be pushing for something higher than 15% in the developer agreement, and I am planning to take that out of consideration in regards to when we go to the approval. I'll take Part E in regards to the development agreement out of there. And so I look forward to the rest of the commission's comments, deliberation, and the eventual motion and amendments that we'll have. That's all my deliberation for right now, and I'll look to the commission for further deliberation, or a motion would be in order. Commissioner Nash.
So we're at the end of deliberation and you're looking for a motion?
I am. I'm looking for either deliberation or a motion.
Okay, well, I am open to make a motion according to whatever procedure staff has recommended to us, taking it one at a time, going through A through F.
Thank you. I'll go to staff right after my explanation. My option proposed to the Planning Commission is to move the staff recommended motion, all 6 items, and any one single commissioner can request that they be pulled off of the motion. And so then we can work on the resolutions remaining as a group, and then the rest, we can deliberate on them separately and or with amendments.
Okay, I need some clarification from staff first, because the items that I would like to amend would be encompassed by either the development agreement or the specific plan. So which one would staff recommend that I include or should I tell you what my amendments are?
So Commissioner Nash, yes, it would be helpful to know kind of what the changes are, because depending on what the change is, or the change that's being proposed, will depend on which resolution actually needs to be modified. I know based on some of your prior comments, it sounds like majority of them are in the specific plan itself, but I don't want to assume too much. So yeah, it'd be helpful to know kind of which category the proposed changes are in.
Okay, well, I'll recite them because there's only 5, and really 2 of them could just simply be recommendations to the city council. And the first one would be a recommendation that that we do have the developer provide notification to the residents that they are within a dam inundation zone. They do, the specific plan is in proximity to an airport, and it is also proximate to farmland. The second recommendation to city council and to the applicant is to strongly encourage the project to be all electric. The actual amendments or conditions of approval would be to go with, I believe it's alternative 2, the reduced intensity. That was already the applicant already, Mr. Hargrave, already stated that his team would be okay with that. The next recommendation would be to work with the applicant to plan and build a Class 1 bike path. I believe he said there was room along the north side of Doris. But I would hope that staff works with him to clarify that, because I do think it's important that we provide a Class 1 bike path out to Victoria, and hopefully eventually up to Ventura. I think that's very important to do that. And also, kind of a minor item, but I think it's important that we acknowledge the importance of providing wildlife habitat wherever we can, and that means having fountains. That would be to allow fountains under the 3.7.7 landscape section on page 67. And that would be the total of my amendments.
While staff is looking at that and not commenting on the pros and cons in regards to it, just on which resolutions will be most likely be applied from those amendments if they had passed, if they could also add the possibility of increasing the affordable housing from 15 to 20%, and a recommendation to council to finalize their position on a PLA. And
Chair.
I imagine that would come, at least for me, from the development agreement, but I'll wait for staff response. If any other commissions have a possible amendment they might propose, not necessarily saying it will come, but just in order so we know which resolutions would most likely be pulled from the main motion.
Chair, if I may.
Yes, please.
Commissioner Nash just recommended the reduced intensity alternative project, and I believe he mentioned that as alternative 2. I just want to state that is listed in the EIR. That's alternative number 3, the reduced alternative.
Okay, I amend my statement to allow for that correction. Thank you. Bearing in mind that that is what the applicant had in mind when he spoke earlier, so I just want to clarify that.
I'm going to go to staff right now, and I'll leave my possible comments to deliberation. Mr. Pearson.
So one thing we didn't really touch on was going with that reduced alternative. So staff did want to kind of speak to that a little bit. As it's currently proposed, staff would actually recommend the project as it is currently being presented. Staff believes that that's more consistent with the vision of the general plan for a urban village, which is intended to have that kind of job housing balance. This essentially would remove all of the business research park, which are more office buildings, those type of things, which really does allow for part of that walkable community. So we do believe that this creates a more balanced urban village and balanced plan by having that area there. It also helps with the viability of that secondary phase.
Okay, Chair, if I may, could I rescind that?
Yeah, you don't need to rescind. Right now, we're just questioning staff in regards to possible amendments that when a motion will come before us, that we know what resolutions to pull from. So I think we can leave it at that for the time being. Thank you, Commissioner Nash. So to staff, as of now, with the possible amendments on a motion to have the full staff recommendation, would it be E and F that we would possibly pull, or just E to deliberate separately and put amendments on it?
So Chair Rejo, and I apologize, I may have missed it, but your recommendation was regarding the PLA and the development agreement?
Yes, I'd like that option possible.
Based on that, well, with the change to the alternative, that would impact pretty much all of the resolutions. The other changes that Commissioner Nash identified would primarily impact the specific plan. So that would be item F and then item E with your proposed change. But if ultimately the commission did want to recommend that reduced intensity, that would essentially impact all of the resolutions.
Okay, thank you. I think I'm good parliamentary-wise with how we'll proceed based on whatever motions and deliberation that we'll have before us. Okay, right now we're again to the proposed motion, and Commissioner Nash, are you still okay with at least making a motion for a staff's recommendation at this time?
I need some direction from staff on how to phrase that.
So Commissioner Nash, I believe you would still be making staff's recommendation with whatever amendments you're looking to propose, or share if you want to.
No, you know what I'm going to do is I'll I'll be moving the staff's recommendation at this time. And so that my plan is that if it is seconded, that we would pull off E and F if it's properly motioned and seconded. And so I'll make the motion right now for staff's recommendation to adopt a resolution recommending the City Council certify the FEIR number 2015-01 for the Teal Club specific plan, and adopt a resolution recommending that the City Council approve planning and zoning permit number 15-610-01 for annexation, subject to certain findings. And C, adopt a resolution recommending that the City Council approve planning and zoning permit number 15-620-03 for a general plan amendment, subject to certain findings. And D, adopt a resolution recommending that the City Council approve planning and zoning permit number 15-560-01 for a pre-zoning subject to certain findings. And E, adopt a resolution recommending that the City Council approve planning and zoning permit number 24-670-02 for a development agreement subject to certain findings. And F, adopt the resolution recommending that the City Council approve planning and zoning permit number 15-640-01 for a specific plan subject to certain findings. Is there a second?
I'd like to second the motion.
Seconded by Commissioner Schuelke. And at this time, I will be in my position as chair. I believe that all of these items can be deliberated separately, and so it just takes any one member to remove them from the motion and vote on them separately. And so at this time, I'm removing E and F from consideration. So the motion before the commission is A, B, C, and D. Do any other commissioners like to pull off A, B, C, and or D in our deliberation at this time? Seeing none, our deliberation now is on A, B, C, and D. I'm just going to say that for the FEIR, I believe that the staff recommendation should be approved in regards to that. We've had responses over more than a decade in various iterations, and that we don't need either the no development or the reduced. And I believe that City Council should annex, have the plan amendment, the pre-zoning, and that the FEIR is in keeping with what we want for the city. Is there any other deliberation on A, B, C, and D at this time? Seeing no further deliberation, Madam Secretary, can we have a roll call, please?
Chair Arejo,
Aye.
Commissioner Schuelke,
Aye.
Vice Chair Dr. Stewart,
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez,
Aye.
Commissioner Connolly,
Yes.
Commissioner Seelsdorf.
Aye.
This motion passes.
I believe you
Oh.
left me out.
Excuse me, Commissioner Nash,
Aye.
this motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. We're now on to E, adopting a resolution recommending that the City Council approve planning and zoning permit number 24-670-02 for a development agreement subject to certain findings. Commission, any deliberation or amendments at this time? Okay.
Chair,
Commissioner Nash.
if you could repeat for the commission the changes that you proposed to item F, if you proposed any, I believe you did.
It would be for E. We're currently on E, the development agreement at this time.
Okay, the development agreement is under item E.
Yes, correct. I thought you said
So
specific
you're not
plan.
proposing any changes to that?
I will be right now pending any other amendments by the commission.
Well, if we're just, I believe my amendments could be under item F, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash. At this time, I move to amend the development agreement to increase affordable housing to 20% and to require, Yeah. You know what, that's fine. To require city council to have a policy on PLAs. Is there a second? Yes. My proposed amendment is to increase the affordable housing component from 15 to 20%, and to require city council to have a proposal or to have a policy on PLAs.
You're looking for a second.
I am if commission, seconded by Commissioner Dr. Lopez. Deliberation now is on the amendment to increase the affordable housing from 15 to 20% and to require city council to have a policy in regards to PLAs. Is there any deliberation on the motion, on the amendment before us? Commissioner Schuelke.
Do you want to say something?
Chair Ray, I was just going to ask for clarification on the 20%. What would be the proposed affordability levels? Right now, I believe it's 60% very low, 40% low.
Proportion, the same.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President. Commissioner Schuelke.
On the PLA, I'm in strong agreement. On the affordable housing threshold, you know, in theory, I'd like to say let's make it 100%. But I'll admit I don't know where the breaking point here falls, and we're talking about many years of work. I heard the applicant earlier indicate that 15 is already a spot that they've worked hard to get to along with city staff. I mean, on a personal level, I'm inclined to support 20%. I'm happy, though, to admit that I don't have all the information, and I'd hate to take a vote that sidelined this project.
Thank you, Commissioner Schuelke. Commissioner Nash. I'm sorry, I promised Commissioner Conley and then Commissioner Nash.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, Commissioner Schuelke, you took probably most of the words right out of my mouth. I have to be very careful with my words because I'm very pro affordable housing, but I'm also supporting, just like you said, the developer's hard work. And I'm not an economist, nor am I a developer, so I will probably say this again in deliberation. I think it's important to stay in our lane. And I think the developer is meeting their requirements for affordable housing, and it's going to create, like you said, Chair, a very balanced community. And I don't feel like I would support changing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Conley. Any others from the commission? Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Nash, then Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
I withdraw my comment.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Yes, I guess I'm not in the finances, so I don't know where the break-even point is. And so my concern is that I would hate to see the project delayed again. And that affordable housing, you know, we need to make our arena numbers. So that affordable housing is important, and if 20% is too much and 15 is what they can give to make this viable, then I think that's where it should stay. I am in favor of the PLAs, though.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. Any others from the commission?
Yes, Chair.
Commissioner Schuelke.
Will it be possible to separate our vote on these two different?
Yes,
Okay.
it will. I believe that they can be deliberated separately, and so they are now separated. And our motion or our deliberation is on just the PM, adding the PLA mandate to the City Council that a policy is made. Is there any deliberation on the requiring City Council to have a PLA policy? I'll go first to Commissioner Schuelke and then Commissioner Connolly.
No comment. I'm in support of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Connolly.
So I know that the PLA conversations have been ongoing with us for a very long time, and I'm sure council's well aware that this is something that's important, not just for the 7 of us, but for many members of the community. I'm not sure that this is the project to mandate it in. I think us talking about it over and over again will keep it relevant and on their minds to have it be a larger conversation that can hopefully cover a lot more area. So those are my thoughts. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any others from the commission?
Chair, sorry, just to clarify on the PLA, your comment was to require city council to have a PLA policy, but are you essentially asking that they require a PLA as part of the development agreement?
At this time, no, that wasn't my amendment. And so I wouldn't be requiring it for this project, but it could be. And so in essence, I'm just requiring that they have a PLA policy. That's all my amendment says for at this time. So it wouldn't be for this project
So I guess,
specifically, although it's up to them if they want to apply it to this project.
because ultimately, the policy would be a separate discussion from the project that is before the commission today. So the commission can recommend that the development agreement included a PLA requirement, but in terms of the larger policy city discussion, that would be a separate item that the commission, or that the council would have to take up.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. My intention was that city council would have the PLA policy. I'm forcing them to have a PLA policy, but it doesn't necessarily have to be for this project, although I'd recommend it for this project. And so I'm giving them that flexibility. Again, part of my deliberations, I'm gonna go to Ms. Roselle, is that what we're doing is just a recommendation for council. So even though I'm requiring council, they can always just change it because it's just a recommendation to them. Mr. Roselle.
Chair, what I'm hearing is your desire for the city council to put the PLA as a requirement going forward. So if that is your recommendation, then I would recommend that you split this apart from the development agreement and make this as item G, which then recommends, or as you stated, I believe, requires the city council to adopt a PLA policy. But I think separating that from the DA would be the better way to accomplish that, because in the end, the city council would need to improve this entire project, so they have the ability to potentially make modifications to the development agreement if they choose to do so.
Acknowledged. Thank you, Ms. Roselle. I'll go to Vice Chair Dr. Stewart, and then I'll have my reply to Ms. Roselle on that.
I guess I have a question. That is that I'm concerned if we have a Brown Act problem. In other words, if we make a G that is not on the agenda for tonight's meeting, and we say that we want to, get city council to move forward on PLA agreement for projects moving forward, can we do that?
The short answer is yes, and here's why.
Okay.
Exhibit E to the development agreement already talks about the local preference, so the whole issue of relating to the kind of wages, local hire, et cetera, is already on the table. In addition, ironically, this afternoon, we heard from one of the labor unions wanting to basically impose a PLA. So that was related to kind of what is before you tonight. So it is something you can recommend, and it relates to the kind of the broader issue of what levels of local labor, what union contracts, prevailing wage, et cetera, is the city going to impose? So I think this is tied into what is before you tonight. So this is something which is definitely in this massive agenda packet that each one of you had a chance to review. So this is something which is before you tonight.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. And I'll make my reply/comments in regards to Ms. Roselle's response. I appreciate the commission's indulgence. I know I've said every, 3 to 6 meetings that the city council hasn't done a PLA. This has gone to past previous chair Chavez, and the mayor even put it on for a possible future agenda item, and they haven't done anything about it. And so if there's no objection, I move that we consider the city council getting to or having a PLA policy and considering it into section G if there's no objection to that.
I do have one comment to make.
Commissioner Nash.
Thank you, Chair. Keeping in mind that whatever we do here tonight is simply a recommendation to the city council, correct?
Yes, that is correct, Commissioner Nash.
And nothing we suggest is binding to this, on the city council. So, a project labor agreement, which I'm for. We have, we need to acknowledge the fact that that would raise the cost of this project on a per unit basis. So it's problematic that, we all want these units to be affordable to the workforce of Oxnard, while at the same time imposing cost that may exceed the ability of a lot of our local families to buy into this specific plan. So it's definitely a conundrum, and there's always pros and cons on both sides. But I think the fact that we are simply making recommendations to the city council, that we can be aspirational in what we recommend to them. And as I said before, this is the last urban village within city limits. So maybe we do things in an aspirational way and hope that things will go our way. So that's all. Thank you.
At this time, Commissioner Nash, is that going to be an objection to move this item to Agenda G to further discuss it?
No, I have no problem with that.
Thank you. With no objection, this item is postponed to Section J to further deliberate, and we're now on the amendment to increase affordable housing from 15 to 20%. Is there any deliberation on this amendment from the Commission? Commissioner Schuelke.
Yeah, just to expand on my thoughts earlier, again, I'd be plenty happy to support a 20% threshold. I'm just acknowledging where I'm a layman, and if it's possible to nudge any developer towards more affordable housing units, I'm for that. I'm going to assume that we've all acknowledged all the work that went into this proposal, not just from the applicant, but from the staff. So I'm going to assume staff feel 15% is where that threshold lies. They knowing better than I do, unless I hear something different from staff and that we could move towards 20%, I'm inclined to support the staff's recommendation.
Thank you, Commissioner Schuelke. Any others from the Commission? I'm going to lean on, even though I didn't push to have the PLA with City Council making it a policy in this project, which I now in hindsight agree with Mr. Rozelle that it should probably be separated. I'll push for the 20%. At least a minority of council have said they supported that, at least a minority of Planning Commission. So I'd like to put it out there. And I am still, and I'm unwilling to draw it at this time, and I'm still for at least recommending to City Council to push affordable housing from 15 to 20%. Any other deliberation at this time? Thank you. The vote will be on increasing affordable housing from 15 to 20%. Madam Secretary, as an amendment to the development agreement, Madam Secretary, can we have the roll call, please?
Chair Arejo,
Aye.
Commissioner Dr. Lopez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Dr. Stewart,
No.
Commissioner Connolly,
No.
Commissioner Nash,
Just to be clear, this is on raising the affordable component from 15 to 20%.
That's correct, Commissioner Nash.
My vote is aye. Yes.
Commissioner Zielsdorf,
Aye.
Commissioner Schulke.
No.
This motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. The motion is now on adopting a resolution, the amended resolution recommending that the City Council approve planning and zoning permit number 24-670-02 for a development agreement subject to certain findings with the approved amendment of the affordable housing from 15 to 20%. Is there any deliberation on this amended motion before us, Commission? Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
Not on that specific point, but on E nonetheless, on the development agreements. You know, for some of us, this perhaps being our last meeting of our term, the no prevailing wage requirement just doesn't fully sit well with me. I would want us to set a standard as a city for our local workers, including many who would be local residents, to earn an adequate living wage to be able to support their families in Oxnard. And, you know, given our higher cost of living, just something that if we are able to take action on would be something I would look to support here.
Thank you. Is that a motion that you'd like to propose, an amendment to propose, or just a general discussion item?
I'd like to make a motion.
Oh, amendment, okay. Go ahead, Commissioner Dr. Lopez. Oh, sorry, it was quite long. If you could simplify it a little.
So this. Thank you. Page 28 of the development agreement, the no prevailing wage requirement to, you know, make that actually a prevailing wage requirement.
Thank you for that. The motion before us is an amendment on the developer agreement, page 20, to change it from no prevailing wage to a prevailing wage. Is there a second on the proposed amendment before us? I'll second that amendment, and now the deliberation is on the amendment to remove, to have a prevailing wage on the developer agreement. I'll look first to Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
I think as I alluded to in making the amendment, I just kind of feel like this is an opportunity for us as a planning commission to set a bar or a standard or a minimum so that folks who will be developing, will be building, you know, this village and, you know, part of our community to earn a living, family supporting wage to allow them to support their families here.
Thank you, Commissioner Dr. Lopez. Any others from the commission? Commissioner Nash.
Once again, I need clarification. So this is in place of the PLA amendment? No, it's in addition to.
So yes, because it's explicitly.
It's a standalone amendment?
Yes.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash. Any others from the commission?
So this would be item G then? No,
We're
this is.
still on E.
This
We're
would be
just
E then.
proposing
so we're
an
not
amendment
separate.
to
Okay.
E. Yes, Commissioner.
And for clarification, it's that it's listed on page 21 that it would not be, and so.
Thank you. Any other deliberation on this amendment? With Seeing none, the vote will be on amending the developer agreement from no prevailing wage to a prevailing wage. If there are no further questions, we'll go to Madam Secretary for a roll call vote.
Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
Aye. Thank you.
Chair Arejo.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
No.
Commissioner Connolly.
Aye.
Commissioner Nash.
Aye.
Commissioner Zielsdorf.
Aye.
Commissioner Schulke.
Aye.
This motion passes.
Thank you. We are now back to the amended resolution for the developer agreement, which includes the increase of 15 to 20% affordable housing and now has a prevailing wage. Is there any deliberation on this amended motion before us? Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
If I could just, someone made the comment, I'm not sure if it was our chair or Commissioner Nash, in terms of, this is a recommendation to the city council, and to the extent that we can, push them towards progress, or, I feel that this certainly moves us, in that direction. I think one of the things that I've always enjoyed about serving on this planning commission, is certainly how we center not only our community, but our community's public safety and quality of life. And so this is just one other opportunity to be able to take that into consideration, not only for the residents here now, but of course, just looking at those in the future.
Thank you, Commissioner Dr. Lopez. Any others from the commission? Seeing and hearing none, Madam Secretary, can we have a roll call on the amended resolution before us?
Real quick, Chair, can I call for clarity again? One more time.
Yes, Commissioner
Thank
Connolly.
you.
Yes, the vote that the Madam Secretary will have a roll call on is on the amended resolution, permit number 24-670-02 for development agreement, which includes the approve amendment of increasing affordable housing from 15 to 20%, and having changing it from no prevailing wage to prevailing wage, to having a prevailing wage. Any other point of information or parliamentary inquiries at this time?
No.
Thank you. We'll go to Madam Secretary for a roll call vote.
Chair Arejo.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
No.
Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
Aye.
Commissioner Connolly.
No.
Commissioner Nash.
Aye.
Commissioner Zielsdorf.
Aye.
Commissioner Schulke.
No.
This motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. We'll move on to F, adopting a resolution recommending that the City Council approve planning and zoning permit number 15-640-01 for a specific plan, subject to certain findings. Commissioner Nash.
I would include my amendments of, let's see, having the Class 1 bike path as suggested by Mr. Hargrave, and the allowing the fountains under 3.7.7 landscape, the landscape section. Just fountains, not the pilasters or the columns or anything else. And I don't know if we need to actually include these, but I mentioned a recommendation on the dam, the notification under the dam inundation zone, the proximity to the airport and the proximity to the farmland. That would be one recommendation, and then the recommendation that strongly encourage the developer to go all electric. So that would be all.
Okay, I'm going to take that as your proposed amendment. Before I ask for a second, I'm going to request a clarification on your amendment. Requiring a Class 1 bike path, the ability to have fountains under 3.7.7, getting the neighborhood to all electric. That was the fourth one, but the third one, I wasn't, wasn't sure of.
Just the recommendations to notify the people who purchase or rent that that the area is a dam inundation zone. It is in proximity to the airport, and it is in proximity to adjacent farmland.
Okay, I just got a dam inundation zone, correct?
Yes.
A notification, okay, thank you very much. The motion before, or it has been moved by Commissioner Nash to amend the specific plan so that there will be Class 1 bike paths, fountains under 3.7.7, a notification to those who who purchase or rent that the area is a dam inundation zone, and that the neighborhood go to all electric. Thank you for that confirmation, Commissioner Nash. Is there a second on the amendment as stated? Commissioner Nash.
Excuse me, did you include the encouragement to go all electric? Okay, thank you.
Yes, I did. Okay, thank you very much. Is there a second on the amendment before us? Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. Thank you. Seconded by Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. The deliberation is on those four amendments. You can pull any of those if you wish. Chair's recommendation is that we could probably vote on all of them unless you would like one of them pulled and to vote separately or differently. Commissioner Conley.
So I think all of those are fantastic recommendations, Commissioner Nash. However, a couple things. So all of the disclosures that you mentioned, I believe, are already mandated disclosures. And I have notes on the other things too, but one of the negative things that I hear being so public facing is that not just huge projects like this, but even small projects have so much red tape. So I speak in opposition for all of these amendments, again, to just stay in our lane and to support building by the professionals, both our city staff and people that have developed multiple developments in their careers. I think nitpicking it all the way down the line is let me choose a kind word. It's nitpicky. And I say that with full belief that they are great recommendations, but I don't think that it needs to be nitpicked more than has already been done here. And I say that in support, again, of staff's recommendation on how this was originally written. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Conley. Any others from the commission? Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Yes. Did we already establish that it's already going to be in there about the airport inundation zone? Was that already established that that's going to be in the documentation anyway? And so we really don't need to do that again? Is that my understanding?
So Vice Chair Dr. Stewart, a lot of these are standard conditions that we place on projects. I'm not certain about the dam inundation zone, but the airport notification and the farmland notifications are standard conditions that we would place on the development project when that came through the entitlement process.
Okay, so can I remove my second from that one? And
Vice Chair Dr. Stewart, we can't remove a second because it's in front of body, but after your comments are done, I'm going to ask if there's no objection to remove at least that notification. So that's going to be my proposal after you're done with your comments.
okay. And then the other one, we talked about gas and electric. If there's no gas, electric is all there is. Is that not correct? So that's by default again? Is that my understanding? In other words, I'm trying not to put anything out there that doesn't need to be out there.
So, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart, I believe the intent of this is to encourage the all-electric development instead of allowing for gas. So right now, it would potentially allow for both.
Okay, but I guess somewhere in there during the briefing, I heard somebody say is that getting a gas project is something that's hard to do. Is that, I guess that's my
Vice Chair
understanding.
Dr. Stewart, would believe the applicant would be able to probably speak to
Okay.
that a little bit more. If Chair Rejo was okay with them providing additional comment at this time.
Okay. That's it for me.
I'm sorry, Mr. President, are you requesting that the applicant respond to Vice Chair Dr. Stewart's question?
Yes, I'm saying they may be able to speak to the whole getting a gas project approved. I know Dennis had previously mentioned that in his presentation.
If there's no objection from the commission, I'll give 1 minute for response if the applicant wishes to respond to Vice Chair Dr. Stewart's question. Seeing no objection, Madam Secretary, can we have 1 minute for a response by the applicant? Thank you.
There we go. Yes, Dennis Hardgrave representing the applicant. It is difficult to go through the process, but it's not, I understand in talking to staff that it is not completely precluded that you can do gas in a project, but our experience recently has been that we're seeing fewer and fewer projects that are going ahead with natural gas for several reasons, some of which have to do with state requirements and how you get refunded for Edison deposits or not if you have natural gas. And so we're relatively agnostic on the topic, I guess is the best way to say.
All right, thank you for the answer. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Hargrave. Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Thank you, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. At this time, I'm going to go to, given the comments that were just made in the last few minutes, if without objection from the commission and from Commissioner Nast, that if we could retract the notification to purchasers and renters.
So retracted.
Thank you very much. Seeing or hearing no other objections to retracting that, we're back to Class 1 bike paths, 3.7.7 fountains, and encouraging an all-electric. Is there any further deliberation on this updated amendment before us from the commission? Commissioner Conley.
What I heard the applicant say earlier, not specifically in the past 2 minutes, but in his first presentation, that most likely the building codes would change. So, and that was the response to that. I think saying all electric is again putting red tape on things in case there are alternate sources of energy in the future that we don't know about. I would, again, like to leave it a little more open because they haven't even broke ground or had this been approved yet. So I think the less red tape we put out there, the more successful this and future projects can be. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Conley, can I take that as that you want to vote on it separately or that you leave it as is and those are your comments? Thank you, Commissioner Conley. Any others from the commission? Seeing and hearing none, I will be asking Madam Secretary to have a roll call vote on amending the specific plan to add a Class 1 bike path to allow fountains under 3.7.7 and to encourage an all-electric development. Madam Secretary, can we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Nash.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez.
Aye.
Commissioner Connolly.
No.
Commissioner Zielsdorf. Aye. Commissioner Scholke.
Aye.
Chair Rejo.
Aye.
This motion passes.
Thank you very much. Now we're on to the amended resolution recommending that the City Council approve planning and zoning permit number 15-640-01 for a specific plan which includes the amendments to include a Class 1 bike path, allowing fountains under 3.7.7 and encouraging an all-electric development. Is there any deliberation on this amended resolution before us?
Repeat it one more time.
The deliberation is now on the resolution recommending that the City Council approve planning and zoning permit number 15-640-01 for a specific plan with the amendments to include a Class 1 bike path, allowing fountains under 3.7.7 and encouraging an all-electric development. Thank you. Is there any deliberation on that amended resolution before us? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, can we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Nash,
Aye.
Vice Chair Dr. Stewart,
Aye.
Commissioner Dr. Lopez,
Aye.
Commissioner Connolly,
No.
Commissioner Zielsdorf,
Aye.
Commissioner Schulke,
Aye.
Chair Arejo.
Aye.
This motion passes.
Thank you very much. And that concludes our agenda item for this Teal Club specific plan. And before we move on to the next sections, I want to just say my thanks really to staff and to the developer. You gave us a lot of information that we could delve into to it over the last week. I believe that there were more than 100 questions posed before this meeting, in addition to the many questions here. And so I believe that's a great amount of engagement and analysis that hopefully the new city council will be looking at. Hopefully they'll be looking at this hearing and the documents that will be coming forth to them. So really, I appreciate everyone's work on this on the commission, and especially to staff. Really appreciate it. So thank you very much. We can move on to section G, studies, sessions, and reports. At this time, I'd like to request, if there's no objection, to postponing the discussion on the PLA due to the lateness of the hour to our next meeting. Seeing none, we'll go to Planning Commission business. Is there any business to report from the Planning Commission? Commissioner Nash.
Thank you. In light of the recent election, I am not sure if we will reconvene as a planning commission in this current form. So I just want to express my deep appreciation for all of my colleagues and commissioners tonight and throughout our term here. I think we've done an exceptional job. Everybody brings their full attention and their full consideration and full love of the community to our endeavors here up on the dais. And so I just want to express my deep appreciation to all of you and to staff also.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash. Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Quick question for you. When did they swear in the new council members?
The current scheduled date is December 11th. That is assuming that we get the results from the county on the election, but that is the date that has been scheduled and planned.
So we may have another meeting prior to that time then.
Well, as you know, your terms go until an appointment, your replacement is appointed if you are up for replacement or if you're not selected. So I remember one time I went to May or June, if I recall.
I went to May.
Okay, my memory is not gone yet. That's good.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. Thank you, Ms. Rosal. Any others from the commission? Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
I think it sounds like we might see each other in January, so I'll save those remarks for a later date. But just to express my congratulations to our newly elected representatives, not only in the city but those who were reelected to continue to serve, for our new mayor and new members of the city council. Just really wish them the absolute best of luck in the challenges and opportunities ahead for all of us. But a big congratulations to everyone who not only ran and those who were successful, but just everyone who was a part of the process and helped shape the debate. So thank you and best wishes.
Thank you, Commissioner Dr. Lopez. Any others from the commission? And for me, even though our terms are likely to go until the first quarter of next calendar year and maybe even into the second, like I said before, my recommendation is prioritize your family, your work, others, and Planning Commission. Even though we love Planning Commission so much, it's a lot of work for no compensation. And so we're doing this for our family, for our community, and so I really hope that you prioritize that. And with that, we may not have all 7 of us in the future, and so there's a distinct possibility that, including myself and everyone left of me on the dais, we may not be here in 3 to 6 months. And so I really appreciate everyone. You'll hear more from me more personally on an email or text or call later, but at least professionally, really appreciate, especially with Commissioner Conley, Commissioner Dr. Lopez, 4 years. It's almost 4 years. It's been amazing. And well, let's see what happens in the next 4 to 8 years and see where we're at, and maybe we can reconstitute as another board or organization in the future. So I'm requesting picture time after the conclusion of this meeting. And if there's no others from the Planning Commission, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Yes, one quick one. Normally, we do voting in new terms, but because we don't know what it's going to look like, how do we take the action if we need to put that off until sometime in the future?
What were you talking about?
In other words, we vote, in other words, around the January timeframe, don't we vote in new chairs and vice chairs and all of those kinds of things?
Yeah, I'll go to staff in regards to that.
Okay.
And to clarify, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart is talking about the chairs and vice chairs of the Planning Commission.
Right.
So essentially, it's intended to be scheduled, I believe, per the bylaws in the first or second meeting of the year. So at that time, the commission could potentially continue that to another time if they wanted to wait until the new council or commissioners were appointed.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. And with nothing further from the Planning Commission, we'll go to Community Development Staff Updates. Mr. Pearson.
Not a lot. We do have the December 5th meeting, which will be the next meeting. At that one, the sand management plan, which was continued at a prior meeting, will be coming back, as well as the calendar for the next year's Planning Commission. So those items will be coming back, and then we can discuss the PLA item as well as the discussion item.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. And if there's nothing else from staff, we'll go to adjournment. And if there's no further business, the meeting will be adjourned. If there's no objection, the meeting is adjourned at 9:52 p.m. Thank you all, and good night. Picture time after this. Thanks.